A girl was happily watching an advertisement. She really liked a pair of trendy black shoes. When the girl was about to call to order the shoes, a scary sound suddenly appeared in the room. The lights kept flashing. The girl followed the scary sound and went to her shoe cabinet. She found that her shoes were thrown haphazardly on the floor. At this moment, a female ghost suddenly appeared in front of the girl. Unexpectedly, she did not show any fear and calmly called out, "Mother." It turned out that the girl's mother was a spirit. She wanted to use this method to stop her daughter from continuing to buy shoes. The reason this girl could see spirits was because she was an exorcist. That day, in the emergency room of the hospital, GA accidentally discovered a demon. She did not think much and immediately chased after it. When the demon was chased to the hospital rooftop, GA used the barrier she created to trap the demon. GA's assistant, who had been waiting since before, immediately snatched her necklace. The demon immediately possessed the assistant. After GA restrained Hun-sik, who was possessed by the demon, she stabbed her hairpin into Hun-sik's chest. Immediately, a stream of power entered GA's body. The demon left Hun-sik's body like mist, then flew into the air and disappeared. Daebak Real Estate has a professional exorcism team. This is a real estate agency that specializes in solving haunted house problems. That day, a man came here for help. The reason was that every time there was no one in his house in the middle of the night, there would be the sound of footsteps on the roof. Under GA's questioning, the man stammered about the reason why the devil appeared. GA immediately realized that the homeowner was hiding something, so she wanted to go there to check. GA told the homeowner that if there was a ghost in the mind, even normal noises that he would consider a sound of ghosts. The next day, GA went to Daebak Real Estate to interview everyone. It turned out that GA wanted to find a shaman to help for the salvation of her mother's soul. When she was alive, she was also an exorcist. Moreover, after GA's mother died, she still existed in her house and acted as a spirit to protect a land. A wandering soul that refused to leave meant that there was still something to longingly remember in the mortal world. A normal shaman could not take her mother's soul away. GA could only keep searching. It was a pity that no one passed this interview, but GA's time was running out. The apartment complex of Daebak Real Estate was about to be redeveloped. She had to quickly find a stronger shaman. Only then could her mother's soul be released. In another development, this man's name was In Baeom. He was a scammer. In Baeom pretended to be a PhD in electromagnetic energy research at Stanford University to scam rich people. He took advantage of houses that had previously had incidents. First, he would create some demonic phenomena that attacked the rich people's houses. For example, lights that kept flashing or strange sounds. Later, In Baeom pretended to be a research staff to sell his exorcism device to rich people. This time, he had just scammed a large sum of money from a rich person. In Baeom was driving his car happily. Unexpectedly, he had just gone halfway when he encountered a creditor. After the two sides raced each other on the street, In Baeom successfully escaped. He brought the huge sum of money to a five-star hotel to enjoy himself. He was lying leisurely on the swimming pool. At this time, under the water, a hand slowly moved up. It gradually approached In Baeom's feet, but at this moment, the necklace around his neck suddenly emitted a blue light, causing the two hands to retreat in fear. In Baeom woke up with a loud scream. It turned out to be just a nightmare. At this time, In Baeom found himself lying on a chair by the pool. There was indeed a necklace around his neck. It was something his father had given him before he passed away. Moreover, his father had warned In Baeom never to take it off. At his father's funeral, his grandmother burst into tears and said that her son would not leave this world by himself. There was definitely something wrong with this, but In Baeom quickly calmed down. He saw his friend watching the Korean real estate news. So In Baeom walked over and said that in Korea, if we don't pay in installments, we will never be able to buy a house in our lifetime. Then he said that he had a great way to make money. In Baeom found out that there was a house that had been stopped construction because the architectural company went bankrupt. The two people who bought the house fell off the building and died. The current owner bought the house at a very low price. Although the house had been completed, it was difficult to rent it out because of the devil story. This condition was really suitable for In Baeom's scam plan. Therefore, he pretended to be a PhD from Stanford University. He started to approach the owner's wife. That day, the owner and his wife also went to that building. They had made an appointment to see the house. But after the people who saw the house heard the rumor that there were ghosts, they did not come. The owner was too used to this. At this time, the wife immediately told her husband that In Baeom could exorcise ghosts, but the husband did not believe that using electromagnetic fields could exorcise ghosts. After saying that, he went to the restroom. After her husband left, the wife suddenly felt something strange in the air. In fact, In Baeom and Chiheo had installed a ghost projector in this house. Waiting for the homeowner couple to fall into the trap, they pretended to make footsteps and door-pushing sounds to scare the homeowner. But in the restroom, the homeowner saw a pair of feet emitting black mist. This was truly something that belonged to a demon. In Baeom and Chiheo were watching the camera. They found that the monitor screen suddenly became blurry. Then, they could no longer connect. The ghost of the room had really appeared. The homeowner left the restroom. He saw his wife walking unconsciously in front of him. The homeowner chased his wife to the rooftop. He saw his wife standing on a very high railing and jumped down. At this moment, the homeowner immediately immediately regained consciousness. He was surprised to find that the person standing on the railing was not his wife but himself. At this moment, the wife quickly helped her husband down from behind. The couple truly realized that this house was extremely strange. In-beom's surveillance camera also returned to normal. Everything was as if nothing had ever happened. At this time, In-beom received a call from the homeowner's wife. She asked them to exercise for this house. In-beom and Chiho were extremely happy. Finally, they could make money. But at the same time, the homeowner also went to Daebak Real Estate. He told GA about that night. The homeowner saw his wife standing on the rooftop and jumped down. But when he calmed down, he realized that the person who jumped off the building was himself. After listening, GA was sure that the homeowner had been bewitched. While asking around, the homeowner told her about the information about the previous jumper. The previous buyer of the house had been scammed by an estate agent friend. After that, they bought the 401 house in this building on installments. But unfortunately, the architectural company went bankrupt. The investors ran to the office crying and wailing. Two people jumped off the building and left this world. One was the homeowner. The other person is the estate agent. G identifies the true identity of the demon as these two people. The problem now is to clarify which of the two person is that ghost. G arrives at house 401 to prepare for the investigation. At this time, In-beom is also at the scene. When In-beom sees GA, he immediately hides. In-beom sees GA burn the tool and use his exorcism magic to make the demon manifest. But unexpectedly, behind the demon who bought this room, another hand appears. That hand is strangling the neck of the demon in front. The owner of that hand is the estate agent. Unexpectedly, there are two demons. The estate agent in the back is the mastermind of the demon. After knowing everything, GA decides to come exorcise the ghost the next day. After that, In-beom also leaves. He coincidentally meets the homeowner and his wife. The stingy homeowner tells his wife that he asked Daebak Real Estate to exorcise the ghost. The important thing is that this Daebak Real Estate only needs to pay the brokerage fee. The cost is much cheaper than In-beom's equipment. After a while of negotiating, the couple finally did not buy In-beom's exorcism equipment. The business failed. In-beom and Chiho felt extremely angry. They had to investigate clearly who had won this business. Very quickly, they investigated Daebak Real Estate. They knew that the person who had come to the house that day was Jie. In-beom felt that Jie was just a scammer like them, so he decided to investigate Ji. The two met under Jie's house. At this time, there were several cars parked in front of her house. It turned out that they were In-beom's creditors. He quickly escaped. These thugs were moved away by Jie. They broke into her house. At this time on the second floor, Jie's mother began to take revenge. She used her power to charm these thugs, causing them to lose their minds. They stared blankly at the window of the second floor. At this time, In-beom started the fake car alarm, causing these thugs to wake up. After waking up, they hurriedly ran into the car to leave. In-beom used his power of deception again. He told Jie that he was actually a researcher on spirits. He came here because he felt that this place had a strong evil aura. The devil was blaming Jie at this moment. This sentence really did describe Jie's situation, but she also exposed In-beom as a fraud. That night, Jie and Hun-sik went there to exorcise the ghost. In-beom was also uneasy, so he went to the scene. He wanted to see with his own eyes how Jie deceived people. He accidentally damaged the barrier that Jie and Hyung-sik had designed. In-beom's destruction was indeed at the most important time to exorcise the ghost. This caused the devil to escape from another corner of the barrier. At this time, Hyung-sik was possessed by the devil. Under the devil's guidance, Hyung-sik ran to the rooftop and prepared to jump down. Jie grabbed Hyung-sik's hand in time. At this time, In-beom also ran to the rooftop. With In-beom's help, the two of them pulled Hyung-sik up. Then, Jie quickly took out her hairpin and stabbed Hyung-sik in the chest. The power of the hairpin was transmitted to Jie's body. She felt the story of the estate agent when he was alive. After the architectural company went bankrupt, the estate agent could not get his investment back. He did everything and even insulted the friend who he had lured to buy a house. The two of them left in anger. But after the homebuyer left, the estate agent suddenly had an evil thought. He picked up a hammer and attacked the homebuyer from behind. The estate agent thought he had killed the homebuyer. In his panic, he thought of a way. That was to fake the homebuyer's scene as a scene of a failed investment and then jumped from the building. But at this time, the homebuyer was not dead yet. Just as the estate agent threw the homebuyer onto the balcony, he suddenly woke up and grabbed the estate agent's hand. As a result, the two of them fell downstairs together. After making the estate agent's soul disappear, Jia wanted to stab a second time because there were two unjusted souls. But at this time, Hyung-sik had regained consciousness. This proved that Hyung-sik had only trapped one evil spirit. The other evil spirit had escaped him. At this moment, Jia turned her head. She saw a strange figure appear on In-beom's face. His body was emitting cold air. It turned out that the homebuyer had entered In-beom's body. Jia was surprised to discover that In-beom was also a shaman. A look towards the exorcism gun that thrown in the distance. But at this moment, the homebuyer did not attack her, but instead rushed to the flower pot on the terrace and used force to dig the ground. Jia took the opportunity to stab In-beom in the chest with a hairpin. The ghost screamed loudly. Finally, he disappeared. Jia went to the flower pot. She dug out a box from under the ground. It turned out to be an item left by the homebuyer's father. After regaining consciousness, In-beom was still scared. He could not believe what he had seen. Hearing this, Ga kept asking Inbeom what he had seen, because a normal shaman would not have the memories of the possessed person after waking up. This made Ga realize that perhaps Inbeom was not a normal shaman. This exorcism seriously injured Hun-Sik's leg. He needed to rest for 6 weeks. Normally, when exorcising a ghost, Ga would see a part of the demon's memory, but this time, she did not feel anything. Perhaps that memory had been transferred into Inbeom's brain. Ga kept asking Inbeom what he saw when he was possessed. Inbeom remembered that the home buyer was holding the box given to his father and was standing outside the door hesitating. The home buyer did not dare to knock on the door to enter. Even though Inbeom could see that memory, he still did not tell Ga. On the contrary, he questioned Ga about what she did to him while he was possessed. Inbeom only remembered that he saved Hun-Sik, then lost consciousness. After waking up, he collapsed to the ground. Ga told Inbeom that he was a shaman. Since birth, Inbeom was very susceptible to being possessed by ghosts. When exorcising ghosts, Ga would trap the evil spirit in the shaman's body, then the exorcism ritual would be performed. Yesterday was the day Inbeom became a shaman for Ga. When the evil spirit possessed him, the shaman would not remember anything. Inbeom was scared and kept denying it. Ga coldly told him not to lie. With this physique, he must have been used to being possessed by ghosts since he was young. Ga was right, and Inbeom couldn't say anything. He left angrily, but after leaving, Inbeom found that the necklace around his neck was nowhere to be found. He remembered that when he rescued Hun-Sik, he had snatched the necklace. At this time, it must be on the rooftop. Inbeom hurriedly told Chiheo to turn the car around and started looking for the necklaces. After finding the necklace, Inbeom discovered that it was broken. He was very angry and scolded Ga for being unlucky. After successfully exorcising the ghost, Ga helped the homeowner sell the house smoothly. After Ga saw the homeowner off, she saw the thugs who forced her to move out before. They were threatening a business family next door. The boss turned around and saw Ga with her murderous eyes. He was scared and immediately ran away. The boss returned and reported to the company president. Daebak Real Estate was not an ordinary place. No matter how much pressure was applied, they refused to move out. Furthermore, when his subordinates came to chase Ga away, they saw a ghost. This statement made Hak Sung feel that it was unreasonable. He slapped the boss. Hak Sung hated incompetent people who kept making excuses about ghosts. If his subordinates couldn't do it, he would personally handle it. Ga and her subordinates mentioned Inbeom. Ga kept thinking about Inbeom's shamanic abilities. That day, not only did he get the last memory of the demon, but when Ga exorcised the demon, he didn't show any signs of fear. With these expressions, perhaps Inbeom was a powerful shaman, but if that was the case, why did Inbeom deny that he could help her take her mother's soul away? Ga started to regret not pulling Inbeom to her side, and on Inbeom's side, he was also disturbed. He kept thinking about the memories related to the homebuyer. It turned out that on the day the homebuyer was murdered, he had gone to his father's house. The homebuyer wanted to give the box to his father, but he received a call from the estate agent. The estate agent said that he wanted to burn the house down and then disappear with the house. The gentle homebuyer hung up and hurriedly ran to the rooftop. He wanted to stop the estate agent's intention to leave this world. The box that the homebuyer wanted to give to his father could not be given anymore. Inbeom followed the homebuyer's memories. He went to the homebuyer's father's house again. When he regained consciousness, Inbeom was already standing in front of the house. At this time, the father was outside smoking. The father felt very sad because he had lost his son. This made Inbeom recall the things he had experienced. That year, after his relatives passed away, he was left alone. At this time, he and his father were definitely two people with the same fate. Ga and her subordinates went to investigate Inbeom's news, but based on this name, they found out that it was not him. Ga opened the box that the homebuyer intended to give to his father. She suddenly knew where Inbeom was going, because once a ghost enters the body, this person will have some of the same habits as that ghost. Ga arrived at the doorstep of the homebuyer's father's house. She asked the father if there had been any unusual situations recently. For example, someone who looked like a homebuyer had come near his house. At the same time, she told the father that his son had not left this world by himself. After saying that, Ga handed the box back to him. Inside the box was a pair of new glasses. Before that, the homebuyer had seen his father still wearing the old pair of glasses. He blamed his father and told him to quickly change to a new pair. In fact, the homebuyer had never thought about leaving this world by himself. In the letter, the homebuyer talked about his expectations. He wanted to start his life over and earn a lot of money for his father. The father cried out after reading his son's letter. Inbeom hid to the side and watched. He saw that the misunderstanding between father and son had been resolved, so he turned around and left. But Inbeom discovered that Gia was standing behind him. He quickly got in his car and ran away. Gia chased after him, but Inbeom still ran away. Inbeom and Chiheo started a new business. They pretended to be Buddhists and went to the temple to eat charity food. They ate while watching the people giving out charity food. Eunhae was the director of the largest fine art institute in the country. Recently, Eunhae was selling the original headquarters of the Fine Art Institute. But because there were rumors that the place was haunted, they couldn't sell it. There were rumors that Eunhae poisoned her husband. But looking at such a strong woman, Chiheo was worried that Eunhae wouldn't believe in ghosts. But there was no need to rush because Inbeom had other plans. chance. He had already investigated the situation a long time ago. In this fine art institute, besides Eun-hai, there was also a senior manager who was Eun-hai's husband's half-brother. In-beom guessed that it was definitely a ghost rumor spread by this younger brother. In order to make the fine art institute suffer heavy losses, then force Eun-hai to resign, and the younger brother would take over the art institute. Therefore, In-beom's plan was to find evidence that the art institute had ghosts spread by this younger brother. As long as they had this truth, no matter how much they threatened the younger brother or gave this evidence to Eun-hai, they could still earn a huge amount of money. In another place, a homeowner named Bong Chun was taking a couple to see a house. At first, the house viewers were very satisfied until they went to the stairs. The boyfriend seemed to hear noises on the second floor. Bong Chun explained that there was a painter living on the second floor. The boyfriend was curious, so he went upstairs, but after walking for a while, he smelled a very bad smell. Bong Chun heard it and went to the room where the painter lived to see. The room was very dark and everything was in disarray. Then Bong Chun saw the painter lying motionless on the ground. At night, Ga came to this house. She felt the presence of a spirit. The spirit lured Ga to the rooftop. Then he ran to the painter's room. Ga understood that this time the spirit was an unjusted soul. It was possible that he had been killed somewhere else, so he would occasionally come to this room. Ga chased after him. She determined that the place where the spirit finally went was the Fine Art Institute. At this time, In-beom had disguised himself as an installation worker of the Fine Art Institute. He installed a camera and a projector on the wall of the Fine Art Institute. That night, the staff of the Fine Art Institute indeed saw a ghost. The staff was extremely frightened and immediately went to find a manager of the institute to check it out. However, this time, the ghost's image was changed into a painting in the Fine Art Institute. A ghost appeared in the painting, causing the manager to run away in fear. The next day, Ga went to the Art Institute and coincidentally met In-beom there. Coincidentally, the unjusted soul also appeared. Ga felt her whole body getting colder. She set up a barrier next to In-beom to prevent him from moving around. However, In-beom saw a sign above Ga's head about to fall. He still left the barrier and pushed Ga away. As a result, Ga could not see the unjusted soul's true face. However, she accidentally discovered that as long as In-beom appeared next to her, her cold aura would disappear. Ga happily grabbed In-beom's hand. A smile appeared on her face. At this time, Eun-hye had arrived. In-beom saw that and started to introduce his profession, but he was asked to leave the Fine Art Institute. Then Hye invited Ga to stay and talked about the Art Institute. It turned out that Eun-hye knew that Ga had helped other companies exercise and sell houses. Eun-hye also wanted to invite Ga to exercise the Fine Art Institute, then sell the land of the institute at a high price. However, In-hai did not believe that there were real ghosts in this world. At this time, the younger brother arrived. As soon as he arrived, he blamed In-hai for the poor business, which caused the Art Institute to be constantly rumored to have ghosts. Gia left and met In-beom in front of the Fine Art Institute. The two began to think about how to express their sincerity to each other, that the contract was beneficial to both sides. Unexpectedly, that after they talked, they agreed on the contract. In-beom sat in Ga's car. He and Chi-ho started texting each other. In-beom said that he had signed a contract with Ga. Chi-ho asked if Ga had liked In-beom. In-beom recalled that at the Fine Art Institute, Ga touched his hand and suddenly smiled strangely. In-beom also began to believe that he had just acted as a hero saving a beauty. His masculinity attracted Ga, causing her to fall in love with him. After that, they went to Daebak Real Estate. Ga had been quietly checking on In-beom since entering the house. She finally let In-beom go up to the second floor. The ordinary shamans who came here to check that all failed this test, but In-beom went up to the second floor easily. Ga followed him. She told him that this room contained her mother's spirit. That year, when Ga was young, she saw a possessed man strangling her mother to death. This man seemed to be In-beom's uncle Ji. Recounted the past and promised to give In-beom a huge sum of money in order to start the exorcism ritual for her mother. The ritual had already begun, but Ga saw that her mother was entering In-beom's body. However, she was unable to stab In-beom with the hairpin. After the exorcism failed, In-beom fainted. In his nightmare, he saw the scene where his uncle killed Ga's mother that year. After In-beom woke up, Ga gave him a necklace. She told him that if he wore this, he could avoid being possessed by an unjusted soul. This necklace was very similar to the necklace he had received from his uncle when he was young. The dead person mentioned last time, and the person who gave the necklace to In-beom was his uncle, not his father. In-beom realized that his uncle's accident and Ga's mother's were definitely related. In-beom wanted to know the truth, so he generously agreed to be a special shaman for Ga. Moreover, he also took the initiative to ask Ga to exercise with her. Gia started practicing exorcism under her mother's guidance when she was young, but she had never really come into contact with ghosts. Ga only used puppets to practice, so she felt very bored. Her mother told her that to become an exorcist, she had to shoulder all the responsibilities. Every ghost that lived miserably outside was very lonely, because they were things that could not destroy the resentment and regret in their hearts. Therefore, they did not want to leave the world. The mission of an exorcist was to make these ghosts forget their painful memories and drink 5 flavored tea of forgetfulness, a drink to forget the memories of this life life to reincarnate. Jay invited In Byum to sign a contract with her, but In Byum refused. Moreover, he said that he would not sign a contract with multi-level marketing people. Jay then told her subordinate to give In Byum 2 million won as salary for the position of shaman. The subordinate hurriedly went to the place to prevent Jay from paying such a high salary to In Byum. But when the subordinate learned that In Byum could go to the second floor, the subordinate's attitude immediately changed. The subordinate started to act as a mediator between the two sides. The subordinate told In Byum that he and Jay would discuss it and then contact him later. When In Byum left, the subordinate tried to persuade Jay to sign a contract with In Byum. In this way, it was very likely that In Byum was a very talented shaman. Not only could In Byum help Jay increase her body temperature, but also absorb the memories of ghosts. These were all very beneficial to Jay, but Jay still felt that she could handle it alone. When her subordinate heard this, he recounted the past. That year, when Jay was exorcising the evil spirit, she almost died. After In Byum returned, he told Chihyo that he wanted to work for Daebak Real Estate. Chihyo misunderstood and thought that In Byum would abandon him, so Chihyo kept questioning In Byum. In fact, In Byum wanted to investigate his uncle's murder case and whether it had anything to do with Daebak Real Estate. After Jay and her subordinate thought it over, they still decided to cooperate with In Foreign. In Byum saw a domineering clause at the end of the contract. During his time as a shaman, In Byum had to ensure that he would not have any desire for women. This made In Byum feel helpless. He thought to himself, how could they invade his privacy like that? But the subordinate explained that the shaman had to be someone who had never had sex before to be able to control a female ghost with abundant yin energy. Otherwise, the shaman might die. Hearing this, Chihyo immediately pulled In Byum to sit down. At the same time, Chihyo told Ga and the subordinate that In Byum was still single. After confirming, the two sides successfully signed the contract. They were then arranged to stay in a small restaurant opposite Daebak Real Estate. At the same time, the subordinate also asked a person to deliver breakfast on the street. The subordinate told the delivery person to monitor the situation of the two people who had just moved in. In Byum and Chihyo still had no intention of giving up the business at the Fine Art Institute. One evening, they wanted to use the image of a ghost to scare Eunhye. But at the crucial moment, Eunhye received a call, so she immediately left. This time, the plan failed again. Chihyo called In Byum to inform him of the situation, but this time, In Byum was exercising with Jie, so he was temporarily not free to talk about these matters. Jie took In Byum to the house where the painter had died. Jie lit incense. Then she suddenly got goosebumps. The light bulb suddenly turned on and off. This proved that there was still a ghost in this room. Jie started searching everywhere. Suddenly, the ghost appeared. Jie took the magic gun in her hand and chased after the ghost. She trapped the ghost on the stairs. The ghost was blocked, so it slowly turned its head. Just when it was about to reveal its true face, the incense in the incense burner suddenly ran out. In just a moment, the ghost disappeared again. Because Jie's body temperature was too low, her body was very weak. She hurriedly grabbed In Byum's hand. In Byum immediately started to make associations when he saw Jie holding his hand, but Jie explained to him because after the exorcism, her body would be very cold. But as long as she came into contact with him, her body temperature would return to normal. In Byum heard this and happily raised his own value. In the current situation, he was a special and irreplaceable shaman. The next day, In Byum and Chihyo discussed the matter at the Fine Art Institute. According to Chihyo's observations, Eunhye turned off all the security systems one day. She stood alone in the quiet fine art room. Furthermore, she bought a special insurance policy. Even if the exhibition was extended, she wouldn't have to pay any more money. On the contrary, she would earn money. These things made In Byum feel very strange. At the same time, Chihyo heard that Jie's mother had unfortunately passed away during the exorcism pact. After that, In Byum remembered that when Jie exorcised evil spirits, she would burn incense. In Byum still didn't believe in ghosts. He thought that the incense contained hallucinogenic ingredients. Therefore, when he was on the second floor of Jie's house, he suddenly fainted. In Byum decided to steal the incense burner while Jie was out. When Jie left the house, In Byum went to look for the incense burner. He searched everywhere in Jie's house. He found a photo of Jie's mother. While In Byum was taking this photo, Jie's mother's ghost suddenly appeared next to him. In Byum's phone immediately ran out of battery, but In Byum still didn't feel anything strange. He put his phone away and continued searching. Finally, he found the incense burner. He put the incense burner in his bag. At this time, a strange sound suddenly appeared in the house. In Byum followed the sound. Jie's mother's ghost threw all the shoes to the ground. In Byum covered her mouth in fear. At this time, Jie happened to be home. Hearing the noise, she went upstairs. A pile of shoes that suddenly fell down did not scare In Byum at all. On the contrary, he started kneeling on the ground and cleaning up Jie's shoes. While cleaning, he said that Jie bought many pairs of shoes with similar designs. Jie's mother remembered his words. As soon as Jie entered, she did not find anything strange. She started blaming her mother. Jie thought that she was making a mess in the house. While In Byum was moving around the room, Jia discovered him. Just as he was about to be caught, Chihyo distracted Jie. Taking advantage of this, In Byum jumped down from the second floor. He escaped. In Byum happily told Chihyo that he had stolen the incense burner, but when he took it out, it was just a pumpkin. Jihyo kept wondering if there really was a ghost in Jie's house. In-beom said that there were no ghosts in this world. Jie continued to investigate the ghost of the painter. Although she only took a quick look at the ghost's face, Jie was able to investigate the ghost's information. Because the fingerprints were almost destroyed, she was unable to confirm the painter's identity. Byung-ho died a month ago from a brain injury. While he was alive, he had terminal lung cancer. After Jia heard the report from her subordinate, Jia took In-beom to the Art Institute. She wanted to personally investigate the relationship between Byung-ho and the Fine Art Institute. They arrived at the Art Institute. Eun-hye and painter Cho came to welcome them. When In-beom saw famous painter Cho, he cautiously walked forward and held his hand, but he felt a strange softness in painter Cho's hands. It seemed that these hands had not been painted for a long time. Jia ignored the polite protocol and went straight to the point. She asked painter Cho if all his paintings were painted by someone else. Hearing this, the expression on the face of the painter changed. Jia walked to a painting. She used a knife to cut the first layer of the painting. After the first layer, a self-portrait appeared. This was indeed the true identity of that unjusted soul. Under Jia's questioning, the painter finally revealed the name of the person who painted it for him. In-beom applauded Jia's charisma. Eun-hye, who was standing next, was also very angry. Eun-hye called the painter to the office. If this news were to spread outside, the reputation of the Fine Art Institute would definitely be damaged. The painter still wanted to hide the truth, so he said that he had hired an assistant painter before. But Eun-hye was not a fool. She told the painter to wait when this exhibition was over, then retiring. The painter Cho was unwilling, but had no choice but to leave helplessly. After going down to the basement, he continued to curse Eun-hye. But when painter Cho got in the car and was about to leave, the car suddenly stopped, and on the front mirror of the car, there were many bloody handprints. This made painter Cho extremely scared. After leaving the museum, Jia told In-beom that everything that happened during the exorcism had to be kept secret. Otherwise, it could lead to death. In-beom agreed verbally, but then called Chi-hyo to collect all the evidence to prepare to blackmail painter Cho. Not long after, the two arrived at painter Cho's house, but at this time, In-beom discovered that he did not bring the exorcism pendant that Jia gave him. It turned out that while eating, In-beom accidentally dropped it, but he did not pay attention and went straight to painter Cho's house with Chi-hyo. At this time, painter Cho's house was full of all kinds of charms. It seemed that he had been tormented by unjusted soul for the past 2 days. Painter Cho watched the video that In-beom gave him, then quickly gave him a bag of money. He also asked In-beom to chase that unjusted soul away before giving him the rest. But In-beom did not know anything about exorcism, so he immediately told painter Cho that he should go find Jia to help with this exorcism. After saying that, the two stood up and left. But when the two had just taken a few steps, a cold wind blew. The charms on the wall all fell down. Painter Cho was so scared that he crawled to the ground. He kept begging the two not to leave. However, the unjusted soul had already entered In-beom's body. In-beom, who was possessed by the unjusted soul, turned to look at painter Cho with eyes full of hatred. At this moment, Jia also came here to find out what was going on. Hearing the noise, she immediately rushed inside. As soon as she entered the house, she saw In-beom strangling painter Cho. Jia flew over and kicked out In-beom, who was possessed by the unjusted soul. Then she put the exorcism necklace on him. The unjusted soul immediately left In-beom's body, looked at Jia with eyes full of hatred, and then disappeared. At this time, In-beom had woken up. Chi-hyo and painter Cho were still staring at him in horror. In-beom didn't know anything and asked Jia why she was here, but Jia just left silently. Because In-beom attacked painter Cho, he was taken to the police station, but Jia quickly bailed him out. But as soon as In-beom and Chi-hyo left the police station, Jia pulled In-beom into the car. The two went to painter Cho's house to exorcise the evil spirit. Jia lit incense again. She wanted to burn all the paintings so that Byung-ho could appear. Sure enough, Byung-ho appeared. Jia used a magic gun to trap him. Then she shouted loudly for In-beom to take off the necklace so that Byung-ho could enter him. But at this moment, In-beom recalled the bad memories of being possessed, so he didn't dare to take off the necklace. Jia saw that the incense in the incense burner was almost out, but In-beom was still standing still, so she ran over and snatched his necklace. At this moment, Byung-ho had entered In-beom's body. Jia immediately took out the hairpin and stabbed it into In-beom's chest. The exorcism ritual was over. In-beom felt the energy being transmitted from his heart. Byung-ho's memories before he died were transferred into In-beom's brain. It turned out that Byung-ho's wife was seriously ill. In order to help his wife recover, Byung-ho did everything he could for her. Returning to the present, the hairpin and the unjusted soul gradually disappeared. But because he had the unjusted soul's memories, In-beom was heartbroken and shed tears. He asked Jia what it was that had just entered his body. Jia replied that it was a memory that the unjusted soul could not let go of before he died. Although Byung-ho's ghost had disappeared, it would leave a residue in In-beom's body. This residue would last for a few days and then disappear automatically. Then the two drove back to Daybak Real Estate. Before parting, Jia personally put the exorcism pendant on In-beom. Then she told him to rest well these days. Do whatever makes him comfortable so that he would not be tormented by that memory. As for In-beom, after he learned that Jia had been an exorcist for 10 years, he immediately exclaimed that this was really really not easy. He had only done it once, and it was already so uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Jia had endured it alone for 10 years. In-beom secretly thought that she must have had a hard time. But ever since Byung-ho's ghost disappeared, In-beom always woke up next to his wife's hospital bed. Tears kept falling down his face. In-beom told Ji-a about this phenomenon. He really wanted to help Young-ho's wife raise money for the surgery. Jia felt that she couldn't do this, so she flatly refused. But she still went to Eun-hye and gave her a video of Byung-ho drawing when he was alive. At the same time, she also told Eun-hye that Byung-ho had a wife. There was a portrait he drew of his wife. So Ji-a asked Eun-hye if she could return that painting to his wife. Eun-hye did not immediately show agree after hearing this, which made Ji-a very embarrassed. She then said goodbye and left the Fine Art Institute. However, she did not expect that at the celebration party at the exhibition hall, Woon-hye would expose the matter of painter Cho looking for someone to paint the picture. She even released the evidence. The celebrities from all walks of life who were present were all talking about it, causing painter Cho to quickly flee the scene in embarrassment. After escaping, painter Cho went to the underground garage where he unexpectedly met In-beom. When the two were about to fight, the police showed up. They arrested painter Cho on the charge of attempted murder. It turned out that painter Cho had previously learned that Byung-ho had terminal cancer. Byung-ho begged if painter Cho could buy one of his paintings. Byung-ho wanted to use the money from selling the paintings to return to his hometown to live with his wife. Who would have thought that after hearing this, painter Cho would worry about his career because without Byung-ho, he would not be able to succeed in the future. So painter Cho was angry and wanted to take all of Byung-ho's paintings away. So during the struggle, he accidentally killed Byung-ho. After that, painter Cho even deliberately staged the scene to make it look like he had left this world by himself. Furthermore, after painter Cho discovered the video, he immediately crushed it, but he didn't expect that because there were too many videos. Chi-hyo couldn't examine them carefully, so he accidentally gave them to the police to keep as clues. Now, painter Cho has finally paid for his crimes. Byung-ho's wife in the hospital has also woken up. She opened her eyes and saw Byung-ho's painting. In the painting was the house that she and Byung-ho had promised each other before, and this was the last mine that Byung-ho left to his wife. In another development, this woman used savings of her whole life to buy a house, but she didn't expect that this house was not normal. A dark shadow suddenly passed behind the woman, followed by a cold wind in the room. This made the woman feel uneasy. She walked in the direction the wind blew, and suddenly a ghost suddenly rushed out. The woman was so scared that she collapsed onto the sofa, but when she calmed down, all she saw was a black trash bag. But the strange thing was not over yet. All the electronic devices in the house started to work by themselves. At this point, the woman could not bear it anymore and screamed loudly. Then the electronic password door opened by itself, and countless black footprints appeared on the floor. Not long after, the owner of this house went to Daebak Real Estate. He wanted to sell the house. Jia brought In-beom to the house, and the woman inside welcomed the two people warmly. But after Jia looked around, she pulled In-beom away. She let out a cold breath and grabbed In-beom's hand. Jia explained to him that there were actually some ghosts who didn't know they were dead. It turned out that this woman didn't know she was dead and had turned into an unjusted soul. After the two returned to Daebak Real Estate, Jia and her subordinate began to secretly investigate the house. It turned out that because the real estate company and the planning company forcibly took over the house, the owners of these houses were forced to leave their homes. Therefore, Jia identified the identity of the unjusted soul as one of these owners. Ji-ho searched online. He found 3 people who had left this world by themselves because of this housing confiscation case. Based on the photo, Ga identified the target. It was a woman named Jung-hee. The subordinate then went to Jung-hee's daughter's house. From the daughter, the subordinate learned that Jung-hee had used all her life savings to buy an apartment. She was very happy to own this apartment. She cleaned the house every day, but Jung-hee only stayed in this house that she had worked so hard to buy for a week. She was forced to leave by the planning company. Jung-hee's clean house was covered with footprints. Not long after, Jung-hee passed away due to sadness. After finding out what happened, Jia knew that the unjusted soul was too obsessed with house number 302, so she prepared everything. The exorcism officially began. Jia gave In-beom a pair of dirty, muddy shoes and went to room 302. Kyung-hee didn't know that she was dead, so she was still cleaning her house. But when she saw Ji-ah and In-beom's footprints, Jung-hee remembered the scene of her being kicked out of the house. She was angry and kept remembering the previous scene. She crawled on the ground and tried to clean it. A moment later, Kyung-hee suddenly turned into a scary unjusted soul. The unjusted soul aggressively rushed towards Ji-ah and In-beom. When Ji-ah dodged the attack, she shouted for In-beom to take off the necklace. This time, In-beom didn't hesitate. After In-beom took off the necklace, Jung-hee immediately entered his body. Then, Ji-ah took out the hairpin and stabbed In-beom in the chest. Memories began to appear in In-beom's mind. Jung-hee wanted to take care of her daughter who was about to give birth, so she went to the real estate company to rent a house. But she met a man who was good at persuasion. He told Jung-hee to buy a house. Coincidentally, there was an apartment building for sale nearby, but Jung-hee, who didn't have much money, was not moved at first, until she came home and saw her pregnant daughter struggling to move up the stairs. This made Jung-hee unable to bear to let her daughter suffer. In the end, she went back to the real estate company and bought an apartment. The apartment was originally a place filled with beautiful memories for Jung-hee and her daughter, but after only a week of living there, she was forced to move out. Jung-hee lost her house and all her savings. She dragged her luggage to her daughter's house. In front of the house, Jung-hee accidentally heard her daughter and son-in-law arguing because the house the daughter was living in was very small. Moreover, they were about to have a child. The son-in-law objected to Jung-hee moving in. Hearing those words, Jung-hee felt very hurt. She was old. She thought she could help her daughter have less trouble, but instead, she brought trouble to her daughter. At the moment, Jung-hee's unjusted soul disappeared. She treated Jia as her daughter to show her motherly love. Behind every unjusted soul, there is a touching story. At this moment, Jia suddenly remembered her mother. Jia had saw of countless ghosts, but she could not help her mother to pass on. As for In Baeom, because of the after effects that appeared after Jung-hee possessed him, his every move and action was exactly like that of a mother. He cleaned the house all day. In Baeom also asked Ji-hyo to investigate a man named Jae-woo. This man created the house purchase scam of Jung-hee. At the same time, Ji-I is also investigating Jae-woo, but under the analysis of the subordinate, Jae-woo is very likely just a subordinate of Hak-sung. The mastermind behind everything is Hak-sung. In Baeom and Ji-ae are both investigating information about Jae-woo. Both of them are hiding this action of theirs. Jia found Jae-woo's younger sister. She pretended to say that she wanted to buy a house under Jae-woo's name. Hearing that, the younger sister immediately called Jae-woo. After the phone number appeared, Ji-hyo's computer immediately showed Jae-woo's location. In Baeom and Ji-hyo also easily knew where he lived. In Baeom disguised himself as a shipper to deliver things to Jae-woo, but the person who opened the door was a thug who had a grudge against In Baeom. The two argued as soon as they met, but the thug still had accomplices. Very quickly, In Baeom was caught and beaten. At this time, Jae-woo also left the house. As for Ji-ae, she used the excuse of wanting to sign a contract with Jae-woo, so Jae-woo's younger sister took Ji-ae to their place. As soon as Ji-ae arrived in front of the apartment door, she saw In Baeom being beaten. Ji-ae immediately kicked the thugs. In Baeom looked at Ji-ae dreamily. In the end, everyone was taken to the police station. Jae-woo was also taken away because he was an accomplice. After the news was released, the first person to hear it was Hak-sung. He used his connections to get Jae-woo out. Ji-ae saw that they couldn't get any results, so she and In Baeom had no choice but to return to Daebak Real Estate. At this time, Ji-hyo said that he had installed a virus on Jae-woo's phone. Everyone decided to let Ji-hyo hack Jae-woo's phone to find evidence that Jae-woo and Hak-sung were colluding. Very quickly, Ji-hyo found a phone recording between Hak-sung's secretary and Jae-woo. Ji-hyo saved and published this recording online. This caused public opinion outrage. This action caused Hak-sung had to stop cooperating with Jae-woo. Hak-sung then told the reporters that he had nothing to do with Jae-woo. He then left the reporters' area. Hak-sung wanted to investigate who had released the video. His subordinates said that the initial investigation determined that Ji-ae and In Baeom had done this. Although Jae-woo had been punished, Hak-sung remained safe and sound, as if nothing had happened. This made Ji-ae very angry. After resolving the haunted house issue, when faced with the homeowner's plea to sell the house, Ji-ae's attitude was different from usual. She suggested to him that he should not sell the house yet because the subway would pass by this place in the future. The house would definitely increase in value. The landlord believed Ji-ae's prediction when he heard this, so he didn't rush to sell the house and started renting it out. After everything was settled, Ji-ae went to Jung-hee's daughter. Ji-ae advised her to rent Jung-hee's previous house. Moreover, Ji-ae had already discussed the rental price on her behalf. With Ji-ae's help, Jung-hee's daughter moved into this house. She held her newborn baby and stood in front of the living room, remembering when she was pregnant, Jung-hee had taken her to see a house. Jung-hee was very gentle at that time. In order to give her daughter and grandchild a suitable and happy environment, Jung-hee tried her best. After all the hardships, this house finally returned to its original meaning. That was to give Jung-hee's daughter a place to shelter from the rain and sun. Jung-hee, in her memory, smiled brightly at her daughter. Recently, there was a rumor on the internet that there was an internet cafe that was said to have an unjusted soul. A famous social media account called the Spirit Hunting Team also kept using this as a topic. This made the owner of this building very angry. He went to Daebak Real Estate and asked Ji-ae to sell the house. After a while of asking around, Ji-ae found out that there was indeed a dead student inside the internet cafe of the building. After confirming the information, Ji-ae and In Baeom went to this building to investigate that unjusted soul. Not long after that, the unjusted soul appeared. With the cooperation of Ji-ae and In Baeom, the student's unjusted soul was quickly dealt with. But strangely, Ji-ae still felt very cold. This meant that there was still a soul here. She went downstairs to investigate, and it turned out that there was a very strong demon under the building's sauna. Ji-ae went downstairs to investigate alone. Unexpectedly, she was pulled into the water and drowned by this demon, but at the moment of danger, In Baeom came to save Ji-ae in time. The two hugged each other. This familiar scene made Ji-ae remember. That year, In Baeom's uncle seemed to be holding a child in his arms. Only then did Ji-ae realize that her childhood memories were missing. In Ji-ae's memory, when exercising exorcising the demon. Her mother clearly did not see this child. GA immediately told the subordinate about the missing memories. The subordinate told GA to rest assured and go catch the demon in the swimming pool. The subordinate would go find clues about that child, so GA focused on investigating information about the building. Ji-hyo investigated information about the demon in the game shop. GA determined that the demon was the missing woman named Sang-mi. Sang-mi and her friend were business owners in that building. Because Sang-mi's bakery business was too profitable, the homeowner found a reason to kick her out. Sang-mi later wrote a complaint against the homeowner for kicking her out of that haunted internet cafe. In-beom and the subordinate went to the house of Sang-mi's neighbor and co-founder of the bakery. The neighbor's impression of Sang-mi was that she was stubborn and easily angered. The friend, on the other hand, confided in her grievances on Sang-mi's behalf. In fact, in order for the business district to become bustling, Sang-mi made the whole street lively. She often lectured the stores that littered and the employees who smoked on the street. Although this did change the business environment, Sang-mi also made many people dislike her. They thought Sang-mi was too nosy, until one day, the homeowner told Sang-mi and her friend that the building was about to be rebuilt and they could no longer continue to do business. Hearing this, the friend and Sang-mi had no choice but to leave. But not long after, they happened to pass by the same street. They discovered that the landlord was using their bakery's brand name to continue doing business. Only then did Sang-mi realize that the rebuilding of the building was a lie. It was because the homeowner was greedy and saw that their business was going well, so he wanted to take the store for himself. After that, Sang-mi kept reporting this bakery, but she was chased away by the homeowner. At the same time, the neighbors around also hated Sang-mi's appearance, so Sang-mi had to leave this street amidst ridicule. One day, Sang-mi came to find her friend. Sang-mi firmly said that she would not give up her rights. After saying that, Sang-mi said goodbye to her friend. After that, Sang-mi went missing. After knowing everything, the subordinate went to the police station to investigate Sang-mi's disappearance. But the police who took over the case were very calm. He did not seriously handle Sang-mi's disappearance, but found a reason that Sang-mi had run away from home. After knowing the identity of the internet cafe's demon, Jia took In-beom there to exorcise the demon. Because Sang-mi was a dead-skin ghost underwater, Jia told In-beom to lie down under the water and wait for Sang-mi to appear. Not long after, Sang-mi was lured to In-beom's side. Jia ordered In-beom to take off the necklace, and the unjusted soul entered In-beom's body. Seeing this, Jia also promptly stabbed the hairpin into In-beom's chest. Sang-mi then disappeared. Her last memory before death was also brought into In-beom's head. Because the homeowner did not answer the phone, Sang-mi went to find his wife to demand justice. After that, the two began to argue fiercely by the sauna pool. A moment later, they started fighting. At this moment, Sang-mi was suddenly pushed to one side by the homeowner's wife. Her head hit the stone statue behind her. Then she held Sang-mi underwater until she stopped breathing. When the unjusted soul was about to leave, she was still filled with resentment and grabbed Jia's neck. Only when the unjusted soul completely disappeared did Jia push In-beom away. After regaining her composure, In-beom was extremely frightened and told Jia the whole truth. However, Jia was not surprised at all, but once again told In-beom to forget that memory. Tortured by the terrifying memories, In-beom immediately went to Jia. He wanted to go to the police station to report the case, to give Sang-mi a clear explanation, but Jia did not agree. Actually, that Jia was not heartless. She had also gone to the police station to report the case, but the police wanted evidence. Everything the unjust soul said was basically nonsense, and no one believed it. So it wasn't that Jia didn't help, it was that she couldn't do anything. In-beom was always haunted by Sang-mi's ghost in his dreams. The after effects made In-beom always full of hatred. This made him want to kill his enemy every minute and every second. At the same time, the subordinate learned that the man who strangled Jia's mother that year was Sung-sik, and the child that Sung-sik was holding at that time was In-beom. After thinking carefully, the subordinate tore up the results of this investigation. The subordinate suggested that Jia terminate the contract with In-beom, but Jia said that the contract was only a few days away, so let In-beom finish the contract before letting him leave. The after effects of being possessed by a ghost always haunted In-beom. He dreams of Sang-mi and the homeowner's wife that day. This made Jia feel very worried. He told Jia about In-beom's situation. After Jia heard this, she said that it was because In-beom was too weak, but then she secretly went to find the homeowner's wife. After the homeowner's wife killed Sang-mi, she was always afraid of the women's bathhouse where Sang-mi died. Jia went to the cashier and asked her if she knew the dead Sang-mi. Sure enough, the homeowner's wife was not surprised when she heard that Sang-mi had died. Jia then said that she knew the homeowner's wife's secret to murder. She felt that her secret had been known to others, so she immediately became nervous and left. At this time, In-beom was watching the surveillance camera on the day Sang-mi went missing over and over again. He discovered that the woman in the video was walking with a slight limp. At this moment, In-beom recalled recalled the memories of the unjusted soul. During the fight with Sang-mi, the homeowner's wife had injured her leg, so In-beom immediately realized that this must be the homeowner's wife, deliberately faking the scene of Sang-mi leaving. But if they wanted to prove that the homeowner's wife had killed someone, they needed to find Sang-mi's body. So they disguised themselves as customers and took pictures of every corner of the building. Based on the analysis of these photos, GA discovered that there was a wall made of steel, and it was very likely that Sang-mi's body was hidden inside. In order to find Sang-mi's body, In-beom and Ji-hyo returned to their old jobs. The two prepared to use the student's ghost to scare the homeowner. Sure enough, the homeowner was scared and ran away. At this time, In-beom hurriedly walked over with a smile. He told the homeowner that tonight he would make the unjusted soul disappear. Then In-beom used his camera to pretend to take a photo, and the homeowner was surprised to see the student's ghost in the photo. To make it more realistic, In-beom made up a gloomy love story. He told the homeowner that before he died, the student accidentally dropped the ring his girlfriend gave him into the wall. Now the wall was sealed. If he wanted the student's ghost to leave, he had to knock down the wall and find the ring. The homeowner also believed In-beom's words and immediately called for workers. But when they were about to break the wall, the homeowner's wife shouted loudly and ran over, saying that the wall could not be broken down. The homeowner wanted to explain, but no matter what he said, the wife would not let him break it down. Seeing this, Jia immediately picked up a hammer and directly hit the wall. Not long after, the wall was broken, and inside was a red bag. But when Jia opened it, she did not find Sang-mi's body. In-beom hurriedly ran over to confirm again, but indeed, there was no body. This made both of them both disappointed and embarrassed. Just as the two were trying to escape, the homeowner's wife suddenly screamed. She seemed to see the ghost of the dead Sang-mi. Jia looked into the wall. There was no ghost inside, but then Sang-mi's body fell out of the dark wall. The smell of rotting corpses immediately wafted into everyone's noses. The case was finally solved. In-beom and his group finally got justice for Sang-mi. After this, In-beom asked Jia what the homeowner's wife saw that made her so scared. They had clearly dealt with all the ghosts, but Jia told him that the real ghost had long since disappeared. What the homeowner's wife saw was probably the ghost hidden deep inside her, and then she had to pay for her sins. From now on, she would also live her days of fear in prison. As soon as one thing ended, another one came. A woman was sleeping in her room when a cold air blew in. The door slowly opened. The woman quickly got up and turned on the light. Her face was full of doubt. Just as she was about to turn off the light and go back to sleep, she heard a sound coming from outside. The woman followed the sound and saw the lights in the hall suddenly flickering continuously. The woman tiptoed to find her son, but saw her son sitting on the ground eating something. The woman asked the boy what he was doing there without turning on the light. She only saw the boy's hand slowly reaching out. The next day, the homeowner took the children to Daebak Real Estate. The son said that the house in the countryside was haunted, so he wanted GA to exorcise the ghost and help him sell the house. But GA found that the old lady sitting to the side looked unhappy. She asked the old lady if she really wanted to sell the house. The old lady hesitated a bit. The son hurriedly went over to urge her, so the old lady reluctantly agreed to sell the house. Not long after, GA took In-beom to the house. As soon as she entered the door, she saw traces of a spirit. She quickly took out the exorcism gun from her pocket, but unexpectedly, that the ghost quickly appeared behind GA. GA cautiously pointed the weapon at the ghost, but discovered that the ghost did not have any malicious intent. The ghost slowly walked into the kitchen, wanting to pick up the sugar jar, but found that it was basically impossible to touch it. The ghost tried again and again, but still had no results. Perhaps this was not an unjusted soul, but a ghost that still longingly remembered this world. After confirming the identity of the ghost, GA left the house. GA said that she would notify them when she finished arranging things. She told them to find somewhere else to stay for now, and then she left. But when In-beom looked at the boy in front of him, he seemed to see himself as a child. He walked over, took off the necklace, and put it on the boy. At the same time, In-beom told the boy not to take it off in the future. That way, the boy would not be possessed by the ghost again. Jia was a little worried when she saw In-beom's actions, so she sprinkled a lot of salt on his body. At the same time, she told In-beom that having the qualities of a shaman does not mean being a shaman is suitable. Regularly dating a girlfriend will neutralize the negative energy, and the situation will change. After returning, they began to investigate the identity of the ghost. Information showed that this house had been there for many years. They found out that many old people had lived here before, but there was no ghost that GA had seen. So GA went to the old lady again and asked about the old ghost. The old lady hesitated for a moment and decided to tell the whole story. This old lady's name was Young-sun. One of her lifelong regrets was not knowing how her father disappeared. Not even his body was found. 50 years ago, Young-sun took care of her father who had Alzheimer's disease alone. That day, the younger brother Young-sik came to find Young-sun. Young-sik said that he sold his father's house to do business. After hearing that, Young-sun was extremely angry and chased Young-sik out. That night, Young-sun saw Young-sik sneaking out of his father's room, but Young-sun thought that nothing had happened. From that day on, his father also disappeared without leaving any trace. Young-sun Young-sun thought that Young-sik had killed his father. Young-sun begged Young-sik to tell her where their father's body was, but Young-sik cruelly pushed her away. From then on, Young-sun never contacted Young-sik again, and Young-sun also moved out of that house. It has been 50 years now. Young-sun took out the only photo she had with her father, and the man in the photo was the ghost in the house. Ji knew that Young-sun's father liked to eat sweets when he was alive. She immediately began to exorcise the evil spirit. She wrote down Young-sun's father's name and put it in the hairpin and told In-beom to hold the sugar jar. Thus, the exorcism officially began. Ji poured sugar in the room. After she let out a cold breath, the unjusted soul slowly appeared, and after entering In-beom's body, the unjusted soul did not have any resistance. When the hairpin stabbed In-beom, the memories of the unjusted soul appeared in his mind. When he was alive, the father had Alzheimer's disease. Young-sun was very filial, but she did not know what to do about her father's illness. He did not even remember his own child. That day, Young-sun and her brother's argument was heard by their father. He felt extremely sad. He could not sleep until late at night. At this time, Young-sik went into his father's room and gently sat next to him. Then he raised his hands tremblingly. The father closed his eyes tightly. He knew clearly what Young-sik wanted to do to him. The father thought back to the scene where the two argued because of him. He felt even more uneasy, so he did not blame his son. Young-sik did this, also freed the father. But in the end, Young-sik still could not kill his father. He gently covered his father with a blanket and apologized to him. Young-sik just felt that his elder sister was pitiful. It turned out that he did this only because he felt sorry for Young-sun. But Young-sik did not expect that this would cause Young-sun to misunderstand for 50 years. He also did not know that his father had heard all those words. Not knowing how much time had passed, the father slowly left the room. After he looked at Young-sik lying on the sofa, he decided that he would not be a burden to his children anymore. With his remaining consciousness, the father left the house and went to a well to leave this world. After the memory ended, In-beom knelt down on the ground and cried. He immediately took Ji to the well where the father left this world by himself. In-beom wanted to tell Young-sun about this story, but Ji stopped him. She thought that even if In-beom knew the truth, he should not interfere in other people's lives. But In-beom said that he and Young-sun had the same pain. They both did not know why the person they loved had to die. In-beom also lost his purpose in living. This feeling was very painful. These words moved Ji. After the two returned to Daebak Real Estate, Ji told In-beom that, in fact, ever since she started working as an exorcist, she had been just like In-beom. She had always wanted to tell the living the truth about what she had seen. She believed that only by doing so could the wishes of the unjusted souls be fulfilled. But in reality, doing this does not make everyone feel happy. There are some truths that are so cruel that they will bring suffering to the living. Tragedy is even more cruel. There was a man who had asked Ji before, after he found out that the person who killed his wife was his son. The man killed his son and left this world by himself. All of this happened because Ji told the truth to that man. So Ji thought again. She began to understand that kindness is not always necessary. After hearing Ji's words, In-beom no longer wanted to tell Young-sun the whole truth. He only told her the location of his father's body. Very quickly, the police recovered his clothes and bones. Young-sun could not hide the pain in her heart. She sat down on the ground and burst into tears. After the exorcism, when Daebak Real Estate brought someone to see the villa, In-beom had the after effects of the father trimming the trees in front of the house. At this time, In-beom asked Young-sun if she wanted to know any news about Young-sik, but she had always misunderstood Young-sik, so she didn't want to have anything to do with Young-sik anymore. After the buyer finished viewing the house, Young-sun went inside to take a last look at the house. When she looked at the furniture in the room, her father's memories came back, causing Young-sun to have many complicated emotions. At this time, Ji and In-beom also entered. After thinking for a while, Ji still decided to tell Young-sun the truth. However, when she learned the truth, she couldn't bear it and fainted. When the two took her to the hospital, she was scolded by Young-sun's children. After that, In-beom secretly found out the younger brother Young-sik. When Young-sik appeared at Young-sun's bedside, Young-sun immediately pulled her younger brother's hand and said the apology that she had always kept in her heart. After that, Young-sun went to Daebak Real Estate to thank the two. Thanks to them, she was able to resolve the hatred in her life with her younger brother. At the same time, Young-sun also said that she would not sell the house anymore. She wanted to live the rest of her life there. On the morning when the cherry blossoms were in full bloom, Young-sun and her younger brother returned to their old house together. When In-beom asked Ji why she changed her mind about telling Young-sun the truth, Ji immediately said what her mother had said. Exorcism is not only for the unjusted souls, but also for the living, so that they can continue to live better. That day, a man was driving home at midnight. On the road, he suddenly saw a figure. The man got out of the car in confusion to check, but only saw a ball in the middle of the road. The man picked up the ball and threw it away, but when he got in the car stalled. While accidentally glancing at the rearview mirror, the man discovered that the ball had reappeared in the back seat, and an unjusted soul was sitting right next to it. Not long after, Daebak Real Estate received a couple who wanted to sell their house. It turned out that there was a rumor about a child ghost in the neighborhood neighborhood, but the woman said that the child ghost was her daughter Bile. A month ago, Bile was hit and killed by a car in the neighborhood, but the driver did not admit to hitting Bile. The mother thought that because Bile died so unjustly, she had turned into an unjusted soul and was wandering around the area. Thinking about her daughter turning into an unjusted soul and still not being able to rest in peace, the mother begged GA to help her release Biel's unjust soul so that she could reincarnate. However, speaking of this VIP neighborhood, it also has some special things. In order to realize the comprehensive new-style neighborhood, this neighborhood only rents out a few buildings. This causes a lot of complaints from the homebuyers in the neighborhood. The rich women occasionally come to the tenants to cause trouble. They think that the poor people who can only rent houses, so they are not worthy of living in the same neighborhood as them. Therefore, a fence must be built to separate the boundaries. Bile's mother is also one of the people who participate in this. Not long after, GA brought Inbeom to this neighborhood to determine if there really are ghosts here. Very quickly, GA discovered traces of ghost activity. Although child ghosts are not cruel ghosts, they are also one of the most difficult types of ghosts to deal with. Because they often run around, it is difficult to see their faces. Therefore, GA and the child ghost also started a crazy chase. When GA was exhausted and stopped to rest, Inbeom immediately went to hold GA's hand to warm her up. At this moment, GA discovered that that ghost was hiding behind Inbeom, so she told him not to move. When GA saw the face of the child ghost, the guard suddenly appeared, making it scared and run away. At this time, Biel's mother also went to explain everything to the guard. After the guard left, the child ghost saw that it was her mother and hurriedly ran to hug her, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't hug her. It turned out that the ghost wandering in the neighborhood was actually Bile. When the mother found out that it was what Bile, she immediately collapsed to the ground. She begged Gia to let her stay here when exorcising the ghost to see her daughter off on her final journey, but for the safety of the mother, Gia firmly refused. After saying that, she turned around and left. After learning the name of the unjusted soul, Gia immediately prepared the ghost exorcising tool. The true cause of Bile's death is about to be revealed. In order to keep Bile's ghost here, Gia once again brought Inbeom to the neighborhood where Biel often went. She then used salt to frame an area on the ground to prevent the ghost from escaping during the exorcism. But when Ga was about to light the incense burner, Biel's mother suddenly appeared. She begged Ga to let her see Biel one last time. Ga firmly refused, so the mother knelt on the ground and begged Ga. Seeing the mother kneeling on the ground, Ga was moved by this motherly love. She told the mother that she could only stand aside and listen to the sound, but just hearing the sound was more than enough for the mother. Ga blindfolded the mother and told her not to take off the blindfold and step out of the magic barrier, no matter what sound she heard. When the incense burner was lit, Biel's ghost quickly appeared. The little girl screamed, but the mother couldn't hear anything. Biel wanted to go and touch her mother, but Ga's magic formation stopped her. Ga told Inbeom to take off the necklace. The ghost was immediately sucked into his body. Biel screamed for his mother. The mother heard her daughter's voice and immediately wanted to hug her child, but accidentally forgot the instructions and stepped on the magic formation, so the mother was immediately transported to an visional scene. She only saw balls slowly walking towards her. The mother looked at her daughter excitedly and said that she would definitely catch the driver. However, Biel told the truth. It turned out that on the day of the accident, Biel didn't go to cram school, but went to his friend's place in the poor district to play soccer. Yuri was a child from the poor district of the rental housing complex, and was also Biel's good friend. When the mother found out that Biel was playing with the poor child, she immediately took her home Memif. At the same time, the mother told Biel that if she didn't focus on her studies, she would end up living in a poor neighborhood like Yuri's family. Biel knew that her mother didn't like her playing with Yuri. She used the excuse of going to extra classes to play soccer with her friends, but because she was so busy playing, Biel forgot about the time. It wasn't until it was dark that she ran home. Because the wall in the area blocked Biel's way home, in a desperate situation, she decided to climb over the fence to go home, but because she slipped, Biel fell and hit her head on the ground. Biel was injured, staggered a few steps, and fell to the ground. Hearing that, the mother sat down on the ground in despair and cried. Only then did the mother understand that Biel wasn't hit by a car, but died on the fence she had built herself. And Biel kept apologizing because she thought that she could climb over the fence. As Biel's soul gradually disappeared, Inbeom also woke up. The hairpin in Ga's hand also immediately disappeared. As for Ga, after many exorcisms, this was also the first time she saw an unjusted soul disappear in this way. Afterwards, Biel's mother went to the police station to explain the cause of her death. When the police asked if they had any evidence, the mother replied that Biel said it himself. Ga of Daybach Real Estate could be the witness. Thousands of years ago, a plague broke out, leaving the town full of corpses, but at this moment, there was a man wearing a splendid outfit, leisurely walking on the street, only to see the man walking in front of the soldiers. But when the man raised his head, the soldiers were scared and continuously stepped back. When the man turned around, there was a person without a face. Many years later, a fire broke out in a small town. All the villagers suffered heavy casualties, but Strangely, there was a man dancing in the sea of fire. GA flipped through ancient books. She learned that whenever a faceless person appeared, a huge disaster would occur nearby with heavy casualties. People called these faceless people faceless devil. The reason for its formation is the gathering of ghosts who died at the same time or after a war, fire, or epidemic. The boy that Sun Sik brought there that year was a faceless devil. Moreover, even if using hairpin to stab, the faceless devil cannot disappear. GA wanted to investigate the cause of her mother's death, so she could only start with the only clue, the faceless devil. But no matter what, she could not find any documents recording the extermination of the faceless devil. At the same time, team leader Kang of the police station also reinvestigated the case from that year. 20 years ago, there was a case at Daebak Real Estate, and the deceased at that time was Mi Jin, who was also GA's mother. The people present at that time were GA, In Beom, and In Beom's uncle is Sung Sik. The person who reported this incident was GA's subordinate. 2 days later, Sung Sik left a suicide note admitting that he was the arsonist. After that, out of fear of being found guilty, he left this world by himself. The only beneficiary of the Yongnam village arson was the Golden Construction Company. Team leader Kang suspected that the Golden Construction Company must have some connection with Sung Sik and GA's mother. However, GA did not know this. She went to the house where Sung Sik used to live. There, from Sung Sik's mother's words, GA found out that Sung Sik's nephew was In Beom. So GA immediately went to find In Beom to ask him about what happened that night. But In Beom didn't remember clearly at all. He also wanted to find out the truth, why his uncle left this world after the arson-related homicide. At this time, GA was very angry. She said that because In Beom had a special constitution, he harmed her mother and Sung Sik. That day, Sung Sik went to GA's house first. In the end, he couldn't bear the torment of killing someone, so he left this world by himself. The one who caused all this was In Beom. He was kicked out of Daebak Real Estate. He couldn't believe that all of this was related to him. GA was greatly shocked. After so many years, she finally met a guy who could clearly feel her pain, giving her comfort and no longer feeling lonely. But now, she discovered that In Beom was related to her mother's death. GA regretfully apologized to her mother. She didn't know anything and still worked with In Beom. Mi Jin sat next to her, accompanying the desperate GA. At the same time, In Beom was also very panicked. He went to Sung Sik's grave. Now, In Beom didn't know what the truth was. Could it be that all the truth was related to him? Coincidentally, Sung Sik's mother also came to this place. She brought In Beom home for dinner. Sung Sik's mother told In Beom that because he was always causing trouble outside, a group of people came to the house to make trouble. It seemed like they were looking for something. Sung Sik's mother said that Jia had also been to her house. In Beom was heartbroken when he heard Jia's name. He sat in his room and looked at Sung Sik's photo. In Beom couldn't understand why Sung Sik left this world by himself. Sung Sik's mother firmly said that Sung Sik could not have left this world by himself. In Beom advised her to accept the truth. All the evidence said that Sung Sik left this world by himself. There was no trace to prove that he was killed. Sung Sik's mother took out the evidence. Inside was the confession letter that Hak Sung had been always looking for. On this side, Jia couldn't calm down either. She closed the door tightly, didn't eat or drink, and flipped through the book that recorded the previous exorcism. Jia only ate when her subordinate came to visit her in her room. In the middle of the night, a girl was walking down the street when she suddenly noticed a man following her. The girl quickly ran into a convenience store to hide. It was not until the man had gone far that the girl bought some things and left. The girl returned to her building. She did not want to take the elevator with a man. The girl was panicking and wanted to transfer this apartment to someone else. Because there were dead people in this building, evils often appeared. Sujin was also afraid because of that. When she was about to enter the elevator, a strange wind blew. The lights in the elevator kept flashing. A ghost suddenly appeared next to her, scaring Sujung into fainting. Luckily, the neighbors discovered her and took her to the hospital. A new day began. Shiheo dressed neatly and held a bouquet of flowers to visit a friend he met online. That person was Sujung. Shiheo introduced herself and kept talking about unrelated things without paying attention to Sujung's feelings. When Shiheo asked her what was wrong, Sujung also told him that she saw a ghost. Under Chiheo's introduction, Sujung went to Daebak Real Estate because the relationship between Jia and In Beom was quite tense recently. Chiheo could only hide outside the door and eavesdrop. Sujung sat down and immediately recounted what had happened to her. When Jia asked if she had any grudge against that ghost, Sujung said that she did not know the ghost and had only met it a few times. That day, someone rang Sujung's doorbell. She opened the door to see that it was a woman on the upper floor. Because she was too drunk, she went to the wrong floor. Sujung saw that the woman was beautiful but spoke impolitely, so she did not have a good impression of that woman. Jia asked if Sujung had killed the woman. If she had only met her a few times, why did that woman still torment Sujung after she died? Sujung immediately denied it and begged Jia to quickly help her chase the ghost away. The subordinate immediately told Sujung to go home and wait for the announcement because they need to confirm first whether there is really a ghost appearing before they can make a decision. Through the investigation of the subordinate, the deceased's name was Hyunju. A month ago, she was murdered in the underground parking lot of the apartment building. After that, there was a rumor in the apartment building that someone had seen Unjusted Soul. GA carefully observed the surveillance camera screen. She discovered that the murderer had changed targets halfway. At first, the murderer was following the girl Soo-jung in front, but for some reason, Hyunju suddenly turned back to the elevator. The subordinate guessed that Hyunju might think that she was Soo-jung's replacement ghost, so she was holding a grudge. But GA decided to check the scene first and then make a plan. Team leader Kang was also investigating the case at the moment, but because the surveillance camera was broken, they couldn't investigate anything. Afterwards, team leader Kang went to the convenience store and posted a wanted notice. When team leader Kang was about to leave, he saw GA passing by. GA went to the parking lot and quickly saw traces of the Unjusted Soul's activity. She lit incense to call the spirit. Hyunju's ghost appeared in front of her. GA told Hyunju that she understood her helplessness and resentment, but hoped that Hyunju would not bother Soo-jung anymore. After hearing GA's words, Hyunju's tears of resentment flowed out. After that, she disappeared. After learning the identity of the ghost, GA left, but she did not know that the two policemen had seen what had just happened with their own eyes. After returning to Daebak Real Estate, GA prepared the exorcism tools and also greeted Hun-sik, their former shaman. After that, the two went to the underground garage and the exorcism officially began. At this time, Soo-jung was making a phone call when a figure suddenly appeared behind her. The phone call was also suddenly interrupted. Soo-jung seemed to have realized something, so she turned around, but the ghost had already disappeared. It turned out that GA had already set up a salt formation in the basement. After the incense burner was lit, the ghost was also summoned by the incense. Hyun-sik saw this and immediately took off the necklace. Immediately, Hyun-sik was possessed by Hyunju. The ghost hit his head on the formation and kept using his hands to break the formation. Hyunju wanted to escape, but GA did not give her that chance. Just as GA was about to stab Hyunju in the heart, Hyunju pushed GA away. Hyunju saw the hairpin and immediately remembered the time when she was stabbed by the murderer with a knife. She was extremely scared. GA saw this and could only take the hairpin back and comfort Hyunju. When Hyunju calmed down, GA tried to stab Hun-sik in the chest but was unexpectedly stopped by team leader Kang. He thought that GA wanted to kill someone because the salt formation was destroyed by team leader Kang. Hun-sik, who was controlled by the ghost, also escaped. GA ignored team leader Khan and hurriedly chased after Hun-sik. On this side, Soo-jung also encountered an unexpected situation. The murderer came to her room. Soo-jung struggled to get out. Unexpectedly, that as soon as she opened the door, she saw Hyunju running over. Hyunju borrowed Hun-sik's body and frantically beat the murderer. When the murderer was dying, Jia ran over. She kicked the two of them to the ground and covered Hun-sik's eyes, not letting Hyunju feel scared. After that, GA pulled out her hairpin. Team leader Kang also chased after her. He stopped GA from stabbing Hun-sik with the hairpin, but at this moment, GA couldn't think anymore. She stabbed Hun-sik's chest with the hairpin. At the same time, team leader Khan fired, but fortunately, it wasn't a real bullet. In an instant, Hyunju's memories entered GA's mind. That day, Hyunju was taking the elevator downstairs when she noticed a masked man following Soo-jung in the elevator. He kept staring at Soo-jung, while Soo-jung was only interested in listening to music and didn't notice anything. Hyunju noticed something was wrong as soon as she saw it. When the elevator was about to close, she immediately walked over and pressed the up button, standing between Soo-jung and the man. Hyunju originally intended to call Soo-jung, but the man pulled out a knife and threatened her. Soo-jung heard the movement behind her and turned to look at the two, but she just thought they were friends and didn't think much of it. When Soo-jung went out, when she turned her head, she saw Hyunju's frightened eyes. But until the elevator door closed, Soo-jung still didn't notice anything. Hyunju had no idea that this kind act of hers would cost her her life. The man dragged Hyunju down to the underground garage. Hyunju struggled many times. She wanted to run away, but in the end, she was unsuccessful. After that, the murderer took a knife and brutally stabbed Hyunju to death. What made people even angrier was that when taking her statement at the police station, Soo-jung said that Hyunju was usually rude and often brought men home. At that time, Soo-jung even thought that she and the man were friends. The flashback ended. The police took them back to the station for questioning. The man's name was Gang Tae. Ever since he entered the police station, he had been shouting that he was wronged. Soo-jung, who was sitting on the side, finally pointed out that the murderer was Gang Tae. When he heard what Soo-jung said, he started to make excuses. During the private interrogation with the police, Gang Tae lied that he was Soo-jung's boyfriend, so he knew her house password. When the police mentioned that he was married, he sadly said that he had planned to break up with Soo-jung today, but she did not agree. Gang Tae's skillful acting made it impossible for the police to investigate anything. On this side, team leader Khan began to interrogate GA. Although he had seen the entire process of solving the case, he still did not believe in ghosts. GA angrily told team leader Kang that if he did not believe in ghosts, why did he not watch the camera carefully? Regarding GA's testimony, team leader Kang said that they still had to find evidence. GA then drew the murder weapon that the man used to kill the person for team leader Kang to see. She also told him that the murderer's left hand was dislocated that day. This made made team leader Kang think of the day when he went to get food. He saw that the man's left hand was indeed injured. This made team leader Kang extremely confused. As soon as everyone left the police station, Gang Tae was released. He walked past everyone with an expressionless face, as if he looked more like the victim. Team leader Kang looked at the murder weapon on the paper and remembered what Ji-ah had said, so he immediately went to Gang Tae's takeout shop, then used the excuse of visiting to check in the kitchen. Sure enough, he found the knife exactly like in the paper, but because there was no evidence, team leader Kang could only pretend that nothing had happened and turned around to leave. On this side, although Ga had already released the ghost of Hyunju, the murderer Gang Tae had not yet been caught. Soo-jung asked to stay at Ga's house. At this time, Soo-jung also told the truth that day, she actually knew Hyunju was in danger. However, she was too scared, so she left to bin. Speaking of this, the lights in the room suddenly flickered, scaring Soo-jung, who quickly hid beside Ga. Soo-jung kept saying that the ghost had come to find her again. Although Ga said that she had released the unjusted soul, Soo-jung still thought that the ghost was haunting her. After hearing Soo-jung's words, Ga couldn't hold it in any longer. She told Soo-jung the real reason why Hyunju died. Soo-jung became even more scared after hearing it. However, Ga continued to say that the person who saved Soo-jung's life was named Hyunju, not the person who died in the parking lot or the older sister on the 7th floor. She could forget everything, but only the name Hyunju, Soo-jung had to remember. Ga continued to say that Hyunju was a TV actress who had been in the industry for 12 years. In order to make money to make ends meet, she had to work late into the night every day. The day she was murdered was also the day she received her first leading role in a script, but in order to save Soo-jung, she was killed. After found out the truth, Soo-jung felt very regretful. She decided not to hide anymore. Soo-jung wanted to use herself to lure the murderer out. She could both avenge Hyunju, reduce her guilt, and start a new life. Facing the brave Soo-jung, Ga agreed to this request. That night, Soo-jung deliberately passed by Gang Tae's restaurant. Sure enough, Gang Tae noticed her immediately. He followed Soo-jung to her apartment. After he entered Soo-jung's bedroom, she pretended to be scared and sat up. Soo-jung lured Gang Tae to admit that he had killed Hyunju. Just when he was smugly thinking that his plan had succeeded, Ga suddenly appeared behind him. But during the fight, Ga was slashed on the wrist by Gang Tae with a knife. He also took this opportunity to run away. Ga saw this and chased after him regardless of everything. At this time, In Beom was observing the situation in the car. He saw that Ga was injured, so he immediately took off his surveillance device and ran to support her. At this moment, team leader Kang happened to pass by. He saw Ga's subordinate calling the police and immediately understood, so the three of them started desperately chasing after Gang Tae. After crossing the shopping street, the fleeing Gang Tae was finally hit by a truck and sent flying. He died on the spot. However, Ga suddenly breathed out a cold breath. It turned out that Gang Tae had turned into a demon. He quickly rushed to attack Ga. At this time, In Beom and Ga signaled each other with their eyes. Ga quickly wrote Gang Tae's name in her blood, while In Beom took off the necklace to let Gang Tae enter his body. The two started fighting. Even though he was possessed, In Beom still had a bit of consciousness that could control himself. He stopped Gang Tae from attacking Ga. Ga saw this, decisively took out her hairpin and stabbed In Beom in the chest. After that, Gang Tae disappeared. The two also resolved their conflict through this cooperation. At this time, team leader Kang also ran over. He brought them all to the police station for investigation. They handed over the surveillance camera video to team leader Kang, so he finally completely believed that Ga was not an ordinary person. Therefore, he did not keep them for long and immediately released them. And finally, everything returned to peace. Chihyo helped Soo-jung move out of her house. Next, In Beom and Ga will face a bigger problem. That night, In Beom just finished shopping at the mall. While he was walking back, he was knocked unconscious by someone. When he woke up, In Beom found himself tied up in the air. Ga in front of him was also tied to a chair. The person who captured them was Hak Som of the Golden Construction Company. His purpose was to force Ga to sell the house owned by Daebak Real Estate to him, then clean it up and rebuild it. He placed the land sale agreement on Ga, but she immediately threw it away. Faced with this provocation, Hak Som ordered his subordinate to beat In Beom. At the same time, he threatened Ga that if she did not compromise, In Beom might be beaten to death. However, Ga did not care about that because there was a devil standing next to Hak Som. Seeing that Ga was still determined in his intention, Hak Som immediately called for someone to continue beating In Beom. His subordinate accidentally dropped the pendant of In Beom. After the pendant fell, the unjusted soul immediately possessed In Beom. After being possessed, In Beom immediately broke the rope and rushed in to beat up Hak Som's subordinate. When Hak Som questioned who In Beom was, he kept shouting for a house. It seemed that there was a secret between the unjusted soul and Hak Som that could not be told to anyone. Seeing that In Beom was about to strangle Hak Som, Ga quickly put the necklace back on him. After that, Ga found out that the unjusted soul was Song Sik, who was also In Beom's uncle. Because Ga wanted to quickly find out the truth about the day her mother died, she told In Beom about it. She decided to destroy Song Sik's unjusted soul to see if she could find the truth about her mother's death. However, after the subordinate heard about this, firmly objected and used the excuse of quitting his job to force Jia to give up. With no other choice, Jia and Inbeom could only hide from the subordinate to discuss countermeasures to find out the truth about her mother's death. However, at this time, Daebak Real Estate received a guest. He claimed to be the owner of a factory and said that he had seen a ghost in the cold storage 2 days ago. After accepting the job, Jia took Inbeom to the cold storage to check. However, they did not find any trace of the unjusted soul. While Inbeom was wondering why the cold storage was so cold without electricity, the door behind them suddenly closed. Immediately afterwards, a large amount of cold air rushed in. It turned out that someone had turned on the switch outside the door and adjusted the temperature of the cold storage to -20 degrees. It was obvious that someone wanted Inbeom and Ga to freeze to death in there. Meanwhile, Ga's subordinate also made an appointment to meet Haksung. She used the excuse that knowing the inside story of Haksung's murder of Sung-sik to ask him to refuse Ga's exorcism. After that, the two of them left one after another. At this moment, the subordinate was hit by a pile of wooden frames falling from a crane, and her life and death were unknown. At the same time, Inbeom and Ga, who were locked in the cold storage, also didn't know what to do. At this moment, the lights in the cold storage started to flicker and then went out. Ga breathed out cold air, and suddenly, the cold storage door opened automatically. She couldn't believe that the person who opened the door was her mother. Ga didn't understand why her mother's soul was bound to the place where she died, that could be able to come here. Ga used her remaining strength to crawl to her mother's side. At this time, Ga had too many doubts in her mind. After her mother's figure gradually disappeared, Ga couldn't hold on any longer and fainted on the ground. When she woke up, Ga and Inbeom had already been taken to the hospital. It turned out that Chiheo saw that the two hadn't returned for a long time, so he went there to investigate, but he saw the two people in a coma in the cold storage. When Ga asked about her subordinate, Chiheo was speechless. They went to the emergency room. Fortunately, the subordinate was not in danger of death. The doctor said that she would regain consciousness very soon. It turned out that the subordinate had predicted that she would be in danger, so he called the police in advance. When the police arrived, they discovered that the subordinate was dying. They connected the facts together and assumed that all of this was Haksung's plot. On the way home with Inbeom, Ga thought about her mother again. This time, it was fortunate that her mother arrived in time so she could escape, but Ga couldn't understand it either. Because Mi-jin's soul was locked in Daebak Real Estate, how could she move to the cold storage? She immediately went to her mother and questioned her, but unfortunately, her mother couldn't talk. Ga thought about what had happened over and over again. Only then did Ga realize that her mother was not a soul attached to this house at all, but a dependent soul attached to herself. However, only a ghost filled with resentment would follow that person. Could it be that the reason her mother didn't want to leave was because she resented Ga? All of this made Ga feel too suspicious, and also made her even more suspicious about the cause of her mother's death. On this side, Haksung learned that Ga and the others were all fine, and he was extremely angry. He immediately ordered his subordinate to quickly find Ga's subordinate, because the guarantee letter in Ga's subordinate hands could prove that he was the mastermind behind the arson of Yeongnam village. At this time, Ga also went to Haksung's place. She went straight to the point and took out the land sale contract, agreeing to sell Daebak Real Estate and move, but the only request was to proceed with the extermination of the ghost next to Haksung. Haksung fundamentally did not believe in ghosts, but did not refuse Ga. He wanted to see what she was trying to do. At the same time, he took the opportunity to get rid of them. Ga told Inbeom that Haksung agreed to exorcise the ghost, so he immediately begged Ga to let him come and be her shaman. He wanted to see with his own eyes the real cause of his uncle's death. At this moment, Ga received a call from the hospital. The subordinate had woken up. Ga rushed to the hospital. She was so happy to see that the subordinate had woken up that she cried. The subordinate told Ga that she had used the letter of commitment to threaten Haksung. Ga did not blame her subordinate for hiding this from her, only told the subordinate to rest assured and recover. She would handle the rest. Night fell again. Ga and Inbeom prepared everything and went to an abandoned construction site to meet Haksung. They wanted to carry out the extermination of Sung-sik's ghosts there. After Inbeom finished setting up the boundary, Haksung also brought his subordinate come. Haksung was afraid that Inbeom would harm him again, so he asked to tie him up. Then Inbeom was tied to a pole with iron chains. After he took off the pendant, Sung-sik's ghost immediately appeared. But when Ga was about to take off the hairpin, she was knocked to the ground by Haksung's subordinate. After that, Haksung slowly approached the screaming Inbeom. He wanted to probe how many crimes Inbeom knew about that year. But Sung-sik's unjusted soul only angrily told the truth. He did not present any evidence to verify. Seeing this, Haksung felt felt that the Inbeom in front of him was not a threat at all. He slapped Inbeom's face and told Inbeom not to use this method to trick him. Hearing Inbeom's name, Song-sik's unjusted soul suddenly went crazy. He struggled against the chains that bound him and knocked Haksong down. Then he violently strangled Haksong. The scene before his eyes became chaotic. The subordinate went up to attack Inbeom and saved Haksong. But at this time, Song-sik's unjusted soul was angry. He kept chasing Haksong. In order to catch up with Haksong, who was running away, Inbeom jumped down. When Inbeom fell, team leader Kang also heard the sound. They quickly got out of the car to check. It turned out that GA had previously made an appointment to meet team leader Kang privately. She had guessed that Haksong would not seriously cooperate with the exorcism. Even when necessary, he would kill her and Inbeom. So before leaving, Gia went to team leader Kam for help. Team leader Kang and his colleagues ran to the place where the noise came from, but did not see Inbeom. They only saw bloody handprints on the ground. Feeling that something was wrong, team leader Kang quickly told his colleagues to call for help. At this time, GA was fighting alone with the thugs. Team leader Kang rushed to the scene. He used his gun to threaten the thugs so that GA could run to find Inbeom. At this time, Haksong was preparing to drive away. He saw Sung-sik's face and was extremely scared. Suddenly, the car braked suddenly. Haksong raised his head and saw Inbeom standing in front. He was both scared and angry, so he ordered his subordinate to drive straight at Inbeom. At the dangerous moment, GA appeared in time to push Inbeom away. Haksong saw that the two were still alive, so he ordered his subordinate to reverse the car and ram them again. But at this moment, a police car appeared. His subordinate could only quickly take Haksong away first. Inbeom, who was possessed by Song-sik, still wanted to chase after Haksong, but he saw the hairpin that had stabbed his chest. Song-sik's memories also appeared in Inbeom's mind. 20 years ago, Song-sik's entire family was forcibly chased away by Haksong. When they were about to beat Song-sik's mother, he immediately appeared to protect her. As a result, Song-sik was brutally beaten by Haksong's subordinate. Because they were poor and had no power, they were basically no match for Haksong. No matter how much humiliation they suffered, they could only endure. After beating Song-sik, Haksong asked him to set fire to the entire village. He promised to give Song-sik an apartment building as compensation. Giving his mother and nephew Inbeom a house was Song-sik's greatest wish, so he agreed to Haksong. At the same time, Song-sik asked Haksong to write him a letter of guarantee. He agreed without thinking much. The next day, Song-sik poured gasoline on the houses in the village. The village was immediately engulfed in flames. The screams of the villagers echoed throughout the village. After this, Haksong told Song-sik to write down a confession, taking all the responsibility on himself. He told Song-sik that doing so would get him the apartment he wanted. However, Haksong gave Song-sik a bottle of soda. He told Song-sik to drink it and sleep. Then he would be moved to a new house. But after Song-sik drank the soda, he did not wake up. Now, Song-sik's soul was about to disappear, but he still missed that house, because that house was the only thing he left for his mother and Inbeom. After that, Song-sik left Inbeom's body. Song-sik saw Inbeom shedding tears. Song-sik's soul gradually disappeared into thin air. When Inbeom learned the true cause of his uncle's death, he felt both pitiful for his uncle and vindictive hatred for Haksong. It was Haksong who took away the only uncle who loved Inbeom in this world. The next day, Inbeom woke up in the hospital. However, he told GA that in his uncle's memory, there was no memory of GA's mother. This was clearly beyond GA's expectations. Song-sik was the last clue for GA to find the truth about her mother's death. But now, there were no clues here either. After Inbeom was discharged from the hospital, he returned home to find the bail papers. He wanted to avenge his uncle and make Haksong suffer the appropriate punishment. But unexpectedly, when Inbeom returned home, he found his grandmother had fainted in the house. The next day, as soon as Inbeom woke up, he saw his grandmother wanting to return home. His grandmother said that she just wanted to return home a little earlier, not wanting to die in the hospital. Inbeom told her the real cause of her uncle's death. Grandma looked at Inbeom with a deep sense of shame. She always thought that a shaman like Inbeom had harmed Song-sik. Grandma asked Inbeom to forgive her for her previous coldness. That night, when Grandma had a dream, she saw Song-sik sitting outside the door. Song-sik still called her mom, like before. After so many years, Grandma finally smiled happily, and Grandma will forever be in this beautiful dream. GA's subordinate was finally about to be discharged from the hospital. GA went to her subordinate's house to get some clothes for her. However, when GA was looking for socks, she suddenly saw a brown box. GA slowly opened the box. Inside was the book of exorcism records that had been lost since 1979. GA didn't understand why this was in her subordinate's place, so she quickly drove to the hospital. At this time, the subordinate was waiting for GA in disappointment. When the subordinate found out that GA had helped her get her clothes, she realized that she could no longer hide the matter. When GA questioned why the exorcism notebook was at the subordinate's house, the subordinate said that the notebook was GA's mother's relic. The subordinate had received it from the police on the day GA's mother had an accident. The subordinate also said that the blood on the notebook was GA's mother's, but in GA's memory, her mother did not bleed at all that day. The subordinate said that GA's memories of that day were not true. They were fake memories she had created to protect herself. But GA Jie did not believe it. Her emotions began to spiral out of control. She hated her subordinate's concealment. After all, the subordinate was the only person Jie trusted. The subordinate wanted to explain to Jie, but she was still being angry. Basically, she would not believe any words from the subordinate. Jie angrily decided to find out the truth herself. The exorcism book indeed recorded the method of exorcism of the faceless devil. Since the faceless devil was formed from countless vengeful souls, the resentment was naturally extremely strong. The common method of exorcism was ineffective, of course. She could only use a nameless hairpin to stab the shaman's heart, but that way, the shaman would also suffer significant damage and lose his life. Not only the shaman, but the exorcist's body could also be possessed. Finally, Jie understood. Before her mother exorcised the ghost, she knew that she might lose her life. This was completely contrary to her memory that her mother died because of her hesitation. Therefore, Jie prepared the formation. She burned the incense stick with her mother's name written on it to convene her soul. Then, she held her mother tightly and entered the scene of that night. But this memory was still the same as before. Even though this scene had appeared countless times in Jie's mind, every time her mother stabbed the hairpin, Jie still didn't have the courage to continue watching. She couldn't see the truth and chose to continue to invade her mother's memories. As a result, Jie discovered that her mother's hands were indeed covered in blood, but it was still the same, not the truth she wanted. Jie's body temperature was gradually decreasing. Her body was extremely weak, but she still struggled to continue burning the incense burner so that she could see the truth she wanted to know. This time, Jie, regardless of the danger to her life, still hugged her mother tightly. Jie invaded her mother's memories again. It turned out that 20 years ago, Sung-sik carried In Beom, who was possessed by a faceless devil, to Daebak real estate to beg Jie's mother to exorcise the evil spirit. Mi-jin saw that the ghost that possessed In Beom was a faceless devil, so she immediately dragged Jie to the second floor. She told Jie that no matter what sound she heard, she was not to go downstairs. Then, Mi-jin called her subordinate. She said that there was a child possessed by a faceless devil. To get rid of this faceless devil, Mi-jin had to kill the child possessed by the faceless devil. She would kill both the boy and the faceless devil, then go to the police station to confess and ask her subordinate to take care of Jie. But unexpectedly, Song-sik had overheard Mi-jin's conversation. Therefore, Song-sik hurriedly took In Beom and ran away. But Mi-jin had already taken the nameless hairpin and gone out. She told Song-sik that if the faceless devil was not eliminated, it would cause an even bigger disaster. But Song-sik did not care about this. He would not allow Mi-jin to harm In Beom. Mi-jin saw the faceless devil awakening that she rushed forward regardless. The two of them rushed forward to wrestle with each other. Mi-jin's protective necklace accidentally fell off. The faceless devil saw the opportunity and quickly rushed forward. The faceless devil with the exorcist's body became even stronger. The first target was Song-sik because the faceless devil was formed from 7 lives burned by Song-sik. At this time, In Beom also woke up. When he saw Mi-jin possessed by the faceless devil, he was so scared that he fainted. Jie heard strange noises downstairs and slowly went downstairs. Jie saw her mother's appearance and was so scared that she sat down on the ground. At this time, Mi-jin was slowly crawling towards Mi-jin, and the faceless devil kept fighting for control of her body, but she was still controlled by the faceless devil. Jie saw the hairpin next to her and picked it up. She remembered the exorcism method her mother had taught her before. Just stab the hairpin into the shaman's heart to eliminate the ghost. Jie was scared and pointed the hairpin at her mother. She didn't know that this stab had taken her mother's life. When Mi-jin died, the faceless devil was also completely destroyed. At this time, the subordinate ran over and saw this scene. When she was young, Jie sat down on the ground and cried loudly. She had a hard time accepting the fact that she had killed her mother. Jie was so heartbroken that she fainted. Perhaps she didn't want to remember such a painful scene anymore. Perhaps Jie's brain wanted to protect herself. Therefore, this part of the memory was sealed by Jie. Mi-jin's blood that flowed on the ground also stained the exorcism notebook from 1979. This truth was too cruel to Jie. She sat helplessly on the ground, tears continuously flowing down. She thought her mother abandoned her, but she did not expect that she herself had killed her mother. In Beom discovered something unusual and ran to Jie's side. She could not hold on any longer and fell into In Beom's arms. On a rainy night, a young man named Chang-ha, who had injured one leg, slowly walked into a restaurant. The woman in the house was still cleaning up the dining utensils. Suddenly, the light bulb started flickering and went out. While the woman was wondering, the door suddenly opened. Chang-ha slowly walked in. The woman was very happy to see her son, whom she had missed day and night. In her mouth, she kept blaming Chang-ha for not coming home for so many years. The woman was heartbroken when she saw Chang-ha with a pale face and injured legs. She prepared kimchi soup that Chang-ha liked most. At this time, the police called. They informed the woman that Chang-ha had died. The woman turned around and saw that her son had turned into an unjusted soul. She was so scared that she fainted. The next day, Chang-ha's parents came to receive their son's body. The couple couldn't believe that they would meet their son, whom they had waited for more than 10 years, in such a situation. Chang-ha's funeral was held on time. In Beom and Jie heard the news and went to the funeral. After Jie finished burning burning incense for Chang-ha, she found herself breathing out cold air. Ga turned around suspiciously and saw Chang-ha's unjusted soul standing next to his mother. Ga returned to Daebak Real Estate Company. This place had become desolate and cold. Ever since Ga learned about the cause of her mother's death, she disappeared. Ga went to live for a while in a place with countless bamboo trees. During that time, Inbeom also looked for Ga, but she still couldn't forgive Inbeom. In fact, the person Ga didn't want to let go of the most was herself. Ga was too stubborn in her relationship with her mother, so it led to the point where she clearly knew the truth but couldn't accept it or let it go. Gia started packing her things. She had sold Daebak Real Estate to Golden Construction Company, so she was preparing to move. At this time, Chanha's mother also returned to the restaurant. If her son was gone, then the restaurant she worked so hard to take care of would no longer have any meaning, but she kept seeing Chanha's unjusted soul in her days. So she went to Ga's Daebak Real Estate and asked about her son's unjusted soul. Seeing Ga's thoughtful appearance, she immediately understood. She couldn't understand why her son refused to return when he was alive, and why he refused to leave after he died. Therefore, she begged Ga to help her send off her son's unjusted soul. Ga had originally given up her identity as an exorcist. She wanted to live a normal life as a normal person, but because of their many years of their close relationship, Ga still decided to help Chanha's mother send off her son. Gia began to prepare the materials for the exorcism and at the same time called in Beom to assist her. The two of them went to the restaurant and began the exorcism ritual. The moment Gia lit the incense, Chanha's unjusted soul appeared in the magic barrier. In Beom took off his necklace. He had let Chanha enter his body. The moment Ga took out the hairpin, something strange happened. Chanha's unjusted soul had left In Beom's body. This time, the unjusted soul could not enter In Beom's body. Seeing this scene, Ga remembered the time when she wanted to use In Beom to liberate her mother. The same phenomenon happened today. The unjusted soul could not enter the body. The mother in the magic barrier kept repeating that she had killed her son. In a moment, Ga understood. It was not because the unjusted soul wanted to stay, but because the living people's obsession was too strong. They did not want to leave the unjusted soul. Ga advised the mother to let Changha be liberated now. The mother recalled the past. At that time, she hated Changha for only liking to depend on others and play games. Changha slept until the sun was high in the sky before getting up and eating. The mother scolded him a few times, and Changha angrily threw down the eating utensils. He looked at his mother with hatred. Changha asked if his mother could not let him have a good meal. The mother and son began to argue. Changha angrily left the house. There was still unfinished food on the table. At this moment, the mother blamed herself. If she had not blamed Changha that day and had let him have a delicious meal, she might have kept her son and not let Changha leave home. Things would not have happened like this. The mother thought that she was the one who killed Changha. Faced with Ga's comfort, the mother did not feel comfortable at all. The pain increased. The mother called out Changha's name in pain. The unjusted soul beside her also shed tears. In Beom was curious if the exorcism had been successful. Gia thought about what she had experienced. She did not answer his question. She went home in a state of confusion. Gia went upstairs and burned incense. She called out to her mother. She still refused to believe that it was her own feelings of guilt, regret, and obsession that prevented her from being able to let her mother go. If that was the case, then everything would end if she disappeared. Before that, Inbeom had sensed that Gia's spirit was unstable. He went to Daebak Real Estate to visit her. Coincidentally, he heard that she wanted to leave this place. In order to prevent Gia from leaving suddenly, Shiheo and Inbeom used the excuse that Changha's mother was planning to close the restaurant and they had nowhere else to rent, so they came here to stay. Even though Gia chased them away, they still refused to leave. Gia had no choice but to let the two of them stay for a week. During this time, Inbeom continuously made Gia feel his presence. No matter what, he still asked her. While opening the door, he also posed very handsomely. Gia felt very uncomfortable being disturbed. She went out for a walk. Unexpectedly, Inbeom followed. In Beom's persistence, Gia began to listen to his stories. She also confided her feelings while talking to Inbeom. There were things that if Gia could say out loud, she probably wouldn't be so tired anymore. Changha's mother made a final meal for her son's spirit, letting him eat his fill before leaving. When Changha's mother asked her son if he could eat, Gia nodded. In fact, Changha had become an unjusted soul and couldn't eat. He could only stand by and watch his mother. After that, Changha's mother said her final farewell. When everything went as she wished, the hairpin on Gia's head gradually disappeared. Gia looked at Changha and discovered that his spirit was also gradually fading away. Finally, Changha's mother let go of her obsession. Her son's unjusted soul also left the human world with peace of mind. At this time, the subordinate asked Gia to go out to talk. The subordinate told Gia about her past. When she was young, because of blind love, the subordinate had a daughter. Later, when she was a high school student, she found a job washing dishes. She held her child while working. The child kept crying, which made her colleagues dissatisfied. At that time, although it was very difficult, the subordinate really wanted to raise her child until she grew up. In order to make a living, she had no choice but to leave her young child at home and go out to work. When she returned home at night, her daughter had stopped breathing. The subordinate did not even know the cause of her her child's accident. Everyone thought that the subordinate had killed the child. The subordinate also thought that she had killed her daughter. Just like that, she was taken to a reformatory. On the day of her release, Mi Jin stood in front of the reformatory waiting for her. This was the first time the two met. Mi Jin was also the only one who believed that the subordinate did not kill her daughter. Mi Jin helped her subordinate send off her daughter's soul. At the same time, she also saved the subordinate who was in despair and regained hope of life. The two became close to each other from then on. Therefore, when Mi Jin handed Ga over to the subordinate secretly made up her mind. Even if he could not protect her own child, she would definitely try her best to protect Ga. Ga held the subordinate's hand, and the two cleared up their misunderstandings. That night, everyone gathered together to discuss a plan to deal with Hak Song. The subordinate investigated and found out that Hak Song had established a company in Manila to launder money. Then, he used the money to bribe high-ranking officials so that they could cover up and help Hak Song do evil deeds. In Bayom also found the letter of guarantee that Hak Song wrote to Song Sik. They took advantage of the double evidence. The police immediately searched Hak Song's construction company and temporarily arrested him. However, they underestimated Hak Song. He had told Secretary Choi to hide the ledger a long time ago and pushed all the responsibility onto Secretary Choi. Ga found Secretary Choi and advised her to cooperate with the police. Don't ruin her life because of a cruel person like Hak Song. Secretary Choi said that she wouldn't betray Hak Song. She owed him a favor. Secretary Choi believed that Hak Song would definitely not abandon her. Ga gave Secretary Choi a business card and told her to think carefully. But this was seen by Hak Song's lawyer, so the lawyer told Hak Song. Hak Song believed that Secretary Choi would not betray him, but she knew too much. He began to have thoughts of murder. After Secretary Choi left the police station, she called a taxi. In the car, the driver played a recording. The recording was the content of the conversation between Hak Song and the police. Secretary Choi was a little surprised when she heard the recording. She found out that the driver was in Bayom, so she told him that even if she heard the recording, she would not betray Hak Song. Although Secretary Choi refused to give in, she began to waver in her heart. While waiting for the elevator, she felt very sad when she remembered Hak Song's words. Secretary Choi took out Ga's business card. Finally, she called Ga and told her that she agreed to testify. At this time, Secretary Choi did not pay any attention to the man coming out of the elevator. When Secretary Choi arrived at her house and opened the door to enter the room, a disaster occurred. A gas explosion occurred in Secretary Choi's apartment complex. This news quickly made the news. Ga watched the news and thought of In Bayom still being there. She hurriedly drove to the scene. When she arrived at the scene was chaotic. There were countless dead and injured. Ga anxiously called In Bayom's name, but accidentally saw the exorcism pendant fall to the ground. When she picked up the pendant, she discovered that In Bayom was possessed by a faceless devil. Ga returned to the car and took the necklace she had prepared. She wanted to put it on In Bayom, but the faceless devil was not easy to deal with. The two of them fought. Fortunately, Ga gained the upper hand and put the necklace on In Bayom. The faceless devil was forced out of his body. In Bayom also gradually regained consciousness. Ga took him back to Daebak Real Estate. In Bayom remembered that when he brought Secretary Choi back and was about to leave, he saw a man where, sure enough, they saw the shadow of that man on the camera, and this was definitely Hak Song's commanding. They started investigating the man's whereabouts. Because Ga and Secretary Choi's last phone call mentioned that Hak Song kept secret books elsewhere. Those books recorded the illegal transactions of the Golden Construction Company. Those records were enough to bring Hak Song to legal punishment. The subordinate hurriedly went to investigate. At this time, what worried Ga the most was that the faceless devil had escaped during the explosion. Ga did not tell anyone about the faceless devil. On this side, because the police did not collect enough evidence, they had to let Hak Song go. Before leaving, he arrogantly told team leader Kam that the police would never catch him. On Ga's side, they had already investigated the location of that man. Ga and In Bayom drove over. However, as soon as they opened the door, they saw the dead man. In Bayom was about to call an ambulance when Ga breathed out cold air. When she saw the ghost of the man behind In Bayom, she knew it was too late. She immediately took out the man's citizen ID card and found out that it was Yang Jae. Ga then wrote Yang Jae's name on yellow paper and put it in a hairpin. When In Bayom took off the necklace, the ghost also entered In Bayom's body. Ga immediately took the silver hairpin and stabbed him in the chest. Yang Jae's memories before he died immediately entered In Bayom's mind. Before the building exploded, Hak Song arranged for Yang Jae to sneak into Secretary Choi's house. Yang Jae conveniently stole Secretary Choi's valuable jewelry and saw a key in the drawer pine. He thought it was the key to the safe, so he conveniently put it in his pocket. After that, Yang Jae put the mini bomb in the microwave and adjusted the heating time, then cut off the gas pipe in Secretary Choi's house. After finishing the action, Yang Jae put on his helmet and left. Not long after, Hak Song came to Yang Jae and gave him some money and told him to hide for a time. Yang Jae was very happy and thanked Hak Song, but Yang Jae did not expect that Hak Song's subordinate would stab him with a knife. Therefore, he was extremely regretful. At this time, he realized that Hak Song was cruel and ruthless and never trusted anyone. anyone. In Baeom woke up in Youngjae's memory. The first thing he remembered was that key, so he quickly told Ga. Sure enough, Ga found the key in Youngjae's pocket. At this time, the subordinate also investigated the real estate under Secretary Choi's name. There was a suspicious warehouse, so the subordinates quickly called Ga. Ga gave the warehouse key and address to Team Leader Khan. From then on, Team Leader Kang began to suspect Ga. He immediately went to the warehouse and used the key to open the door. Sure enough, he found a bunch of books inside. This time, he could finally arrest Hak Sung. But when Team Leader Kang brought people to the Golden Construction Company, Hak Sung had already escaped. Although Hak Sung had escaped, the high-ranking officials who protected him were arrested by the police. Now that the evidence was complete, the whole country was hunting for Hak Sung. It was impossible for him to escape, but people were still not happy. The apartment building explosion had injured many people, and the death toll was also increasing. So the news spread on the internet that if anyone saw the faceless devil at the scene, they would eventually die in a strange way. Ga couldn't hide it anymore, so she told everyone the whole story of the faceless devil. She told everyone that there was currently no better way to deal with the faceless devil. Only a shaman or an exorcist, when possessed by the faceless devil, could use an anonymous hairpin to pierce through the heart and die together with the faceless devil. Only then could the faceless devil be completely exterminated, which meant that one of Ga and Inbeom would have to die. But if they didn't care, it had to wait until the faceless devil killed enough people, and when the resentment dissipated, the spirit would also disappear. Faced with this situation, Ga decided to give up on exterminating the faceless devil. But when she and Inbeom went to the hospital to check on the situation, they found that the person who had seen the faceless devil was in a state of panic, constantly hearing the faceless devil's voice in his head. There were also people who could not be cured and died. Ga was also immersed in the choice, and Inbeom came up with a plan, which was to write the names of the 8 people who were killed by the faceless devil on each hairpin and stab them into the shaman's body at the same time. But normally, the shaman's body could not withstand being stabbed so many times. But under Inbeom's guidance, Ga came up with a way to seal it. She stuck the names of the 8 people on a bell, then lured the faceless devil into the bell, and finally closed the lid and sealed the faceless devil. But this sealing method was only a temporary measure. Gia planned to seal the faceless devil first, and then think of another way. Furthermore, the sealing method has a disadvantage, which is that it will leave aftereffects on the exorcist. So if it is really not necessary, then this method will not be used, but it is a better way than someone having to sacrifice. So the two of them went to the apartment building to set up a formation here, then placed a bell to seal the faceless devil. Ga lit an incense burner to call the spirit. Not long after that, the faceless devil was attracted here. But this faceless devil was very aggressive. The candles were gradually extinguished, the sealing bell cracked. Gia shouted loudly for Inbeom to run. As soon as she finished speaking, Ga fell into an illusion. In the illusion, she returned to Daebak Real Estate. Inbeom was having breakfast with everyone. Mi Jin was also alive. She was busy cooking in the kitchen. Jae saw the image of everyone happy and harmonious. She thought that what she had experienced in the past was all a dream. In the dream, she became an exorcist. Inbeom was a shaman, and Mi Jin became an unjusted soul. Everyone who knew Ga's strange dream burst out laughing. Ga saw them laughing and talking happily. She had been holding back for a long time and kept crying. Mi Jin discovered the necklace around Ga's neck. She kept advising Ga to take it off. The others also advised her. Ga suddenly realized that it was all an illusion. At this moment, something strange happened. The kitchen suddenly fell into darkness. Mi Jin in the distance slowly turned around. It was the faceless devil. Then Ga returned to reality. It turned out that in order to save Ga from being attacked by the faceless devil, Inbeom took off the necklace. He let the faceless devil possess him. The possessed Inbeom stomped on the necklace. He pushed Ga away and broke the barrier. He was about to leave this apartment building. Ga hurriedly stopped him. She couldn't let the faceless devil out to harm others. But if she wanted to destroy the faceless devil, she had to sacrifice Inbeom. Ga was heartbroken, but at this moment she also understood Mi Jin's feelings at that time. Ga painfully pulled down the hairpin and rushed towards the faceless devil. While the two were fighting, Ga didn't know when she had taken off the necklace. The moment Ga hugged Inbeom, she was possessed by the faceless devil. Ga used her remaining consciousness, want to leave this world by herself. When the hairpin stabbed Ga's chest, Inbeom ran up and grabbed the hairpin. He didn't want Gia to die. The two felt a conflict. Not long after, the faceless devil disappeared. Then the two fell to the ground. It was just like 20 years ago when Inbeom touched Ga. The two had changed eye color. After succeeding, the first thing Ga did was call the subordinate. But Ga didn't expect that Hak Sum, who was hiding behind her, would stab her. He was very cruel, and whoever dared to ruin his business would not have a good ending. Hak Sum approached Ga, wanting to kill her. At this time, Inbeom had woken up. He ran forward to stop Hak Sum. Ga took this opportunity to pick up the magic gun next to her. She hit Hak Sum's head, causing him to fall to the ground. Luckily, the subordinate arrived in time. Hak Sum saw this and left the scene. When he left, he bumped into a drunk man. Not only did he not apologize, he also smashed a beer bottle on the other man's head. The other homeless people couldn't stand it anymore. when they saw this. They went out to stop Hak Song, but they accidentally pulled out his bag. It was full of money, but Hak Song pushed them away. This action angered the homeless people Masord. Everyone chased after him. While the two sides were arguing, all the money in the luggage flew out. Hak Song lost his balance and fell down the stairs. Before he died, he still wanted to hold on to his money, but couldn't. The homeless people were only concerned with picking up the money and didn't pay attention to Hak Song's situation. On the other side, Jie and In Baeom were taken to the hospital. In the ambulance, In Baeom suddenly opened his eyes, and at the same time, the ambulance lost control and crashed into a car on the side of the road. In Baeom got out of the car safely. At this time, he was possessed by an unjusted soul. He walked forward with a nonchalant look. After being treated, Jia woke up. The first thing she did was ask where In Baeom was. Only then did she learn from the police that Hak Song had died, and the ambulance carrying for In Baeom suddenly lost control on the road, leading to a traffic accident. After that, they didn't know where In Baeom went. Jia guessed that while dealing with the faceless devil, In Baeom's necklace was broken by it. In addition, Hak Song's death spot was near where the ambulance arrived, so his ghost must have entered In Baeom's body. If things continued like this, things would definitely get more difficult. Chi Heo was worried about In Baeom's safety, so he checked the camera at the scene of the car accident. He found that as soon as the unjusted soul appeared, the camera would temporarily stop working. Putting these things together, they learned that the possessed In Baeom was heading towards Daebak real estate. Jie finally understood that Hak Song's target was her Kre. It was because Hak Song failed to kill Jie before he died that he became obsessed and became an unjusted soul. Jie ignored the advice of the subordinate and immediately took a gun and returned to Daebak real estate. First, she wanted to exorcise Hak Song's ghost here. Not long after, Hak Song entered. Jie did not hesitate and directly used her weapon to attack Hak Song. The two of them started fighting. Jie was injured and at a disadvantage. Her wound was torn and bleeding. Hak Song took this opportunity to strangle Jie. Jie called In Baeom's name. She wanted to awaken his consciousness. In Baeom heard Jie scream and immediately fought with Hak Song inside his body. Jie took this opportunity to go to the barrier. After In Baeom was subdued by Hak Song, she entered the barrier. Jia threw the hairpin and tore the prepared salt bag. The salt fell to the ground and immediately formed a barrier. Hak Song's power had greatly decreased. Jia took out her weapon and fought him. She finally defeated Hak Song. Jia had prepared in advance. She used the flame of the lamp to burn Hak Song's ghost. He would have to endure the fire of sin for committing many evil deeds. After enduring the torture of the flame, Hak Song was sealed in a bell. After successfully exorcising the evil spirit, Jia lay unconscious on the ground. When she woke up, she discovered a burn mark left by the magic weapon on her hand. This was the after effect of the sealing technique. But the after effect of the sealing technique was not only that, there were even after effects beyond Jia's imagination. After recovering, Jia was standing outside the hospital door when something strange happened again. Even though she was in the hospital, Jia could not see any ghosts. This meant that she might have lost her exorcism ability. Jia felt extremely frightened. She hurriedly returned to the Daebak real estate, went to her room to get the incense burner and lit it. When the smoke spread, Mijin's ghost immediately appeared in front of Jia, but she couldn't see anything. She quickly looked around the room, but still couldn't see her mother. Jia had confirmed that she had really lost her exorcism ability. She felt extremely helpless. After that, Jia locked herself in her room all day. Everyone was very worried about her, but didn't know whether to bother her or not. Just when everyone didn't know what to do, Jia suddenly adjusted her emotions and stood in front of everyone. She calmly faced the after effects of the sealing technique. Even though her exorcism ability was gone, she had no regrets. If she had to choose again, she would still choose to use this method to punish Hak Song. Moreover, there was no guarantee that the after effects of the sealing technique would last forever. It was also possible that the exorcism ability would recover very quickly. Seeing that Jia had adjusted her mood, everyone was very happy. They also started to use all kinds of methods to help Jia regain her exorcism ability. Jihyo tried using the iron sand method to heat up the salt pot, letting Jia put her hand in the pot to test it. Of course, Jia refused. The subordinate prepared a table of food for Jia. Not long after, all the food on the table was gone. Jia felt a little full, but nothing else changed. In Baeom used hypnosis. As a result, Jia had not yet fallen asleep when Chiheo beside her had already fallen asleep. Thus, all methods were almost ineffective. However, that day, Chanha's mother brought them a lot of kimchi that she made herself to thank Jia for helping her send Chanha away. At the same time, she also fulfilled her wish to give her son a last meal. This made Jia remember when she sent off Chanha's ghost. Giving her son a last meal was Chanha's mother's only wish, so Jia immediately thought of a way to send her mother off. So she and Baeom went into the room, wrote her mother's name on yellow paper, then put it in the incense burner and lit it. Then Jia blindfolded herself again. Then Baeom took off the necklace. In a moment, Jia fell into a hallucination. She came before Mi-jin. She rushed over and hugged her mother, continuously saying sorry. Because of her, Mi-jin couldn't be released. But Mi-jin felt very happy because she had seen Jia grow up with her own eyes. Besides, she had many dear friends who cared for her. Mi-jin no longer had any regrets. She told Jia to convey her her thanks to Inbeom, because at first, she almost killed the innocent Inbeom. Seeing Mi-jin about to leave, Jie couldn't hold back her tears, but she still held back her pain and let go of her mother's hand. Finally, Mi-jin was actually released. The hairpin also disappeared right after that. Inbeom helped Jie take off the blindfold. He hugged the crying Jie and gently comforted her. Before Mi-jin left, she went to see her subordinates. Mi-jin thanked the subordinate for always taking care of Jie. After saying that, Mi-jin's unjusted soul also disappeared. The next day, Jie woke up when Inbeom called. As soon as she left the door, she saw Inbeom dressed luxuriously standing with the supercar he rented brand. He wanted to take Jie to a place. Finally, the two stopped the car in front of the funeral home. Jie told Inbeom that her mother's soul had disappeared. What's the point of going to the funeral home to pay respects? But Inbeom didn't think so. People didn't believe that there were souls of the dead here. They just came here to express their longing to ease their pain. After leaving the funeral home, Jia said that she wanted to go on a trip and to find her exorcism ability again, by the way. But she didn't know when she would leave or return. A year later, Jie finally returned to Daebak Real Estate. Inbeom heard a noise and came out of the room. He had been waiting for Jie to return all this year. The scar on Jie's hand had disappeared. Her exorcism ability had also been restored. Daebak Real Estate started doing business again. A man came here for advice. Everyone dressed up and started asking him questions. After asking around, Jie took Inbeom to the place where the exorcism ritual needed to be performed. The two began a new exorcism journey. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again in the next movies. Bye bye.